Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network. I'm Robert McNeely. It's our live desk for you today, this beautiful Thursday, August 14th. And it is worth celebrating because tonight at 6 o'clock, stay for our live desk, of course, over the course of this late morning and into the early afternoon on the East Coast for President Trump's remarks at 1 o'clock. But exciting events coming about. 6 o'clock tonight in the prime time, the voice of reason touching on the issues that are most affecting you in the dog days of summer in your constitutional republic. We've also had a week of great interviews and discussions with high-level officials and commentators throughout the country and within the Beltway and outside of the Beltway. So stay tuned for those. In addition to this day in history, you have August 14th, where President Truman did declare the unconditional surrender of the Empire of Japan to the United States and the Allies to end World War II. Of course, this followed the Victory in Europe Day on May 8th, so August 15th, tomorrow, officially is VJ, Victory Over Japan Day. And as President Trump has mentioned, we should celebrate these things in this country. Russia, the Russian president he's meeting with tomorrow in Anchorage, Alaska, in fact. Stay tuned for that live coverage. It's going to be very exciting about what may come of this meeting between President Trump and President Vladimir Putin. But Putin was bringing in the Brazilian president to Xi Jinping, among other extreme leaders throughout the world, to celebrate the victory of World War II. What about Bastille Day that France celebrates on a regular basis? President Trump, inspired by Emmanuel Macron's use of the military parade. And of course, we were there on Flag Day. Happened to be President Trump's birthday back on June 14th, a blistering, somewhat overcast day, but the rain held off for that big, bold, beautiful military parade, something we should celebrate more often in this country. And remember those dates of May 8th and August 15th, Victory Over Europe, Victory Over Japan Day, and those beautiful parades and those pictures of those men and women who fought hard to not only defend America, but save entire continents from tyranny. And in turn, many of those countries now celebrating freedom like we do here in the United States of America. So we have a jam-packed show of great content for you today. And President Trump, really a highlight of his week, making America safe again by using home rule in Washington, D.C. And as he mentioned to the reporters in the Press Brady briefing room on Monday, a jam-packed room, in fact, that most of you might be liberal, might be with legacy media, but most of you want security. This is a bipartisan issue as they live and work in and around the federal city. And everyone wants safety. They want that for their posterity. And that's why government exists in the first place, whether it's the federal government with the use of the military to protect us, or state and local municipalities that have law enforcement in order to protect the general posterity. This is clearly outlined in the founding documents in arguments made by both Federalists and Anti-Federalists, and leading to Democratic, Republicans, and the Whigs of the early years of this great young constitutional republic. And someone in the ilk of those founders is our very own Vice President of the United States at 41 years young, giving remarks yesterday. We have playback video of that for your viewing pleasure right now.
It's good to be here with you. Please have a seat. I see we have some beautiful families out there. You know, I served a few years in the Marine Corps, and I got to say, I'm pretty jealous. This is a pretty fine duty station, if I do say so myself. This is a beautiful country. I just spent the past few days here, actually. Some meetings, some downtime with the family, and we've had a very, very good time here in England. The United Kingdom, of course, is one of our great allies, so I think I speak for all the Pathfinders here. Is that right? When I say, and all of the Red Dragon folks as well? When I say that we are proud of the special relationship, and we are proud to work together with our British friends right here at Fairford Base. God bless you all. So, here's a simple thing. We've got a beautiful country here. We've got a beautiful alliance. And I think every single one of you know that for over 100 years, we have worked with our friends from the United Kingdom to achieve great victories. And if you look at the long sweep of history, every time something big happens for the world, every time a great victory is won for freedom and for peace and for prosperity, it is almost always the Brits and the Americans that do it together, and we win every single time we go to war together. You guys know that as well as anybody. But it's not just about going to war, and it's not just winning when we do. When we work together, when we fight together, when we make it clear that we always approach every situation with an open hand, but if things go poorly, we're willing to do what we have to do. We make it easier to achieve peace and prosperity all over the world. So I want to say, from all of us back home in the United States, for all the people that you serve with, that you fight for, that you make it possible to live the American dream in peace and prosperity, we are proud of you, we are grateful for you, and as your Vice President, I am damn proud to be here with you today. God bless every single one of you. Now, it would be impossible for me to list every single thing that has happened just from this single base over the past 100 years, from World War I to our operations against terrorists in Yemen. The history of this base, of its mission, of all of the things that we've done with our friends from the United Kingdom, it is a very, very proud tradition. So I won't try to list everything that we've done, but you guys know the mission, you guys know the story, and you guys know the history. We have done so much with our English friends, with our friends from the UK, and I started I started the week at a place called Chevening with the Foreign Secretary of the United Kingdom, further south in the country in a county called Kent. And what we did is we worked on one of our most important shared security goals in Europe, which is the end of the war between Russia and Ukraine. The President of the United States came in 6 months ago, and I just talked to him right before I came on the stage, and he said very simply that we are going to make it our mission as an administration to bring peace to Europe once again. But as you all know, it is impossible to bring peace anywhere unless the bad guys are also worried that we've got a hell of a fine Air Force and a hell of a fine military to back up the peace to begin with. So what you guys do, even though you may not see it every single day, is you make it possible. You make it possible for us to accomplish the President's goals through negotiation. You make it possible for us to go into a room and say, yes, we want peace. Yes, we want to work together. Yes, we'd like to bring an end to this terrible conflict. But we've also got some great airmen back at Fairford and other bases. They're going to make sure that no matter what happens, the peace and the prosperity and the goals of the American people are going to be well served by what you do. So I think if you look back at the last 6 months, if you look back at the number of lives that we've saved in Rwanda and the Congo, the President ended a 30-year war there. If you look at what we've done in the East Asia, where the President ended a conflict, in Serbia, Kosovo, where the President has brought peace to that area of the world, and now, in just a couple of days, with the President heading to Anchorage, Alaska, to try to achieve an end to this terrible war in Russia and Ukraine. You guys make that possible. You guys are the reason why we can go into a negotiation with strength. You guys are the reason why we have leverage in these conversations with world leaders, because they know that if we cut a deal, it is backed up by the finest fighting force anywhere in the world. And that is what makes your job so important, and that's what makes it so important and such a proud moment for me to be here with you today. Because nothing that I do, nothing that we do as an administration is possible without the hard work, the courage, and the skill that you guys bring to the job. Now, I mentioned earlier I was at Chevening meeting with the British Foreign Secretary. I've met with a number of foreign leaders just in the last, hour I had a call with about 30 European leaders. And over the past couple of days, I've met with a number of leaders across the UK, across political parties, across the generations, because that's one of the great things about the UK's special relationship with the United States is it cuts across political alliances, it cuts across political parties, it cuts across generations because we've been working together for literally centuries. And you know what every single person that I meet often tells me? They tell me about how impressed they are by the skill, by the determination, and by the dedication of the American military. You all are what make it possible for us to do what we do. When Marco Rubio, our great Secretary of State, goes to engage in some diplomatic negotiation, he knows that he's got the great people of the Secretary of Defense standing behind him. And that fact, the fact that people are impressed by you, the fact that so many people are frankly afraid of you, is why we're able to do what we do as an administration. So I just want to say from the President of the United States, who again I just spoke to, and he told me to give you this message. We're proud of you. We're grateful to you. We know that it's not always an easy job. We know there are often long hours, but I hope you know that the peace and the prosperity and the safety of your countrymen depend on you doing a good job, and we are damn proud of the job that you do every single day. God bless you all, and thank you for having your Vice President here in the UK.
Lord, it's the same old tune, fiddle and guitar. Where do we take it from here? Rhinestone suits and new shiny cars. It's been the same way for years.
And the Vice President, J.D. Vance, a Marine, Semper Fi, do or die, meeting with those troops there in the United Kingdom, with some very important meetings he had with the national security apparatus of the kingdom as well, reaffirming those trade agreements and reaffirming the strong bonds that the United Kingdom and the United States share on the heels of President Trump's Turnberry, Scotland meetings, not only with the European Union president, but also with the UK Prime Minister Starmer, that they are working very well together. And I'm sure that tomorrow you will see some of that masterclass that President Trump regularly puts on, whether it be at the press conference on Monday, at Wednesday's Kennedy Center announcements, or even tomorrow. He is the peace through strength president, showing it on full display. And I think it's long overdue now that he truly does deserve that Nobel Peace Prize, because his ultimate goal is to stop the killings, whether it be in Russia and Ukraine, to Israel, along with the Palestinian Liberation Organization and along the Gaza Strip there. This president bringing common sense into the discussion, whether it be with friend or foe. And as he mentioned last week, that it looks like the heir apparent could be J.D. Vance, could be Marco Rubio, but Marco Rubio saying in an interview as well, J.D. Vance is well suited to be the successor to President Trump. I know it's premature to discuss this, but it's important to think about down the line, because as we talk to the experts in the field, there's a very real reality that the big government socialist will not stop. The Democrat Party of yesteryear, it's gone. And until that true liberal party can reemerge, what you have now is progressive communist socialism that wants to control every aspect of your life. Just look at Mamdani's campaign in New York City. But we're grateful for sponsors like allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You can now save 25% off of ivermectin and mebendazole. Think about that with code RSBN10 for an additional 10% off. Thank you to Michael Kunzler, the co-owner of this fine organization of doctors and nurses, pharmacists who want to get the PBM issue out of your lives. And what is that exactly? President Trump signing that executive order. It's actually a bipartisan issue because Governor J.B. Pritzker has done that in Illinois as well. It's insurance companies that actually go into pharmacies and they double dip. So they're controlling the pharmacies and they're controlling what goes in and out. And they don't want you to have life-saving medication like ivermectin, mebendazole, methylene blue, NAD+, among many others, essentially 200 plus medications that can save you and yours from bacterial and viral infections, and emergency medical kits, antibiotics that could go on the road with you for your summer vacation. So scan that QR code now, allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Get that extra 10% off with RSBN 10. And now, for a limited time, 25% off of ivermectin and mebendazole. It's a great deal. And at the max, you'll be waiting 2 or 3 days for this medication if you order right now at 11:15 Eastern. But in many cases, it gets to your doorstep in 24 hours with a prescription. So no insurance, no hassle, no red tape, no sweat. Just life-saving meds to stock up the medicine cabinet with so you don't have to scramble at the last minute. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN and Kalshi.com/RSBN with that peace of mind for your health. Now you can make a trade or a bet or two on who will President Trump pardon this year. Will it be Steve Bannon? Will it be Hillary Clinton? I'm just throwing that in for fun. But remember the Al Smith dinner from 2016 when President Trump told that amazing joke regarding Hillary Clinton bumped into him and gently said, "Pardon me." And he said, "I'll look into that after I become president." Well, Elon Musk create a new political party this year, the American Party. We've seen third-party movements in the past. I think President Trump is the true third-party populist who took over a major party in order to make America great again. But regardless of all that, those questions on music, sports, culture, politics, everything affecting America, domestically and abroad, there for you to answer and to trade on. Kalshi.com, KALSHI.com/RSBN. Literally, trade on just about anything. It's your go-to. It's a lot of fun, so check it out. Scan that QR code now, Kalshi.com/RSBN. Thank you for sponsoring us on the right side of history. And that Made in America agenda really delivering the manufacturing boom needed here in the United States. Before we covered the Kennedy Center Award nominees, the announcements, as President Trump said, "I've been wanting one of these for a while, especially for The Apprentice," as it was announced. He's chairman of that great board, and he will be hosting the 48th annual celebration of these great awards, in addition to rebuilding this crown jewel in Washington, D.C., celebrating the arts and the legacy and memory of the 35th President of the United States, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, someone who loved the arts, someone in the 60s, it was aptly named of that period, Camelot, which was very popular. Richard Burton's immortal tale of the book turned to musical, turned to screen. We've seen Camelot in a number of different forms in art and culture over countless decades, including the late, great Sean Connery telling his own version and tale of that in the 1990s, a friend of President Trump, as we recently learned from his Scotland trip. But we had Peter Navarro's video playing back 6 minutes of why these tariffs work and how great leaders in America like Alexander Hamilton, to Henry Clay, to Abraham Lincoln, and William McKinley, the aptly two last gentlemen presidents of the United States, ultimately giving their lives and their lives cut short by radical assassins' bullets. They advocated for tariffs and for protection economy to make sure that either British influence at the time or outside influence would not affect the American middle class, and in turn, it led to a booming manufacturing policy and factories that really built this great nation, especially in the North. Essentially, that's why, as well, the Civil War was won by the North ultimately, because the South had better generals. They had many West Point grads, and many of these people friends of one another in a brutal, horrible conflict that should never happen again, that mostly pitted Republicans versus Democrats, generally speaking. Now, you had the North really up against the ropes, but it was the manufacturing that outlasted the agricultural nature of the South. And even with all of the ability to trade and with the train tracks, we know what happened there with the burning of Atlanta and Sherman's march to the sea. So it's manufacturing and factories that really are the broad shoulders of this industrial base of this country. And because we hit our bold times in the 19th century with the growth of this great nation through new technologies and through the new technologies emerging now with AI, we should not be put up against the ropes when it comes to a green new scam or the Paris Climate Accords, which President Trump rightfully removed the United States from back in his first term to usurp the globalist agenda, the League of Shadows, the deep state that seeks to control every aspect of the United States of America. So we were proud to highlight that video thanks to Mr. Peter Navarro just yesterday putting out on Truth Social via President Trump's account. Now, under President Trump, the White House has stated bold leadership and unwavering commitment to putting America first, and our nation is simply witnessing an unprecedented surge in manufacturing investments and job creation across the country. Now, historic trade victories and pro-American policies are bringing back those factories, those jobs, and prosperity into the country like never before, delivering big wins for hardworking Americans. It's the CEOs and the CFOs and the union leadership, in fact, and those great union workers who are very pleased with what's happening here in the United States. We see it at every single rally. And although there have only been a handful this year, we saw it from the Capital One Arena before the inauguration. We saw it from Warren Township, Michigan, with the United Auto Workers saying Detroit is back. This is something that America should have never lost. Champagne should not have been popped open in 1999 and 2000 with then President Bill Clinton and the Auto Pen senator from Delaware to celebrate with then Vice Premier Xi Jinping of the Chinese Communist Party, because they attempted to bankrupt Detroit while bankrolling Beijing. And in 1992, famously, as then President George H.W. Bush looked at his watch, it's something that was a major gaffe on television. Although he was looking at how much time he had to respond, it looked like he could care less about the answer. And then Governor Bill Clinton walked in very suave and said, "I feel your pain." And I don't think he necessarily did. I think he was more interested in the globalist third way agenda. And we break that down here at the network. We're unafraid to stay away from those topics because we want to dive right into them and let you make up your mind, the American people, based on history, based on what's happening right now in this new big tent Republican MAGA agenda. Now, announcements from just the past week are a testament to the success of President Trump's Made in America revolution. AbbVie now has announced a $195 million investment to expand its United States-based drug production capacity. Apple has announced the company will increase its U.S. investment by $600 billion over the next 4 years. You might have caught on Instagram, I forgot who was actually sharing it, but I shared it on my personal page, that remember Barack Hussein Obama walking around in a town hall saying, how's he going to create these jobs? It's a fantasy land. And then it goes right to Tim Cook at Apple saying, no, we want to invest in America. Actually, most of our plants will now be in the great Commonwealth of Kentucky. They want to enjoy the bluegrass. So do we, because this country is surging back. This brings additional components of its supply chain and advanced manufacturing back home where it belongs, directly creating 20,000 new American jobs and many thousands more across all American suppliers for Apple. Now, Century Aluminum has announced it will invest $50 million to revive its South Carolina manufacturing plant for the first time in a decade, bringing its production back to 2015 peak levels. Ford has announced it will invest $5 billion across its Kentucky and Michigan manufacturing plants to deliver a new midsize truck and advanced batteries. That gets me excited because I want a truck again. My very first car was, in fact, a Ford Explorer with the pickup, the bed, and it helped me become one of the more popular individuals during my junior and senior year of high school. Now, GE Appliances announced a $3 billion investment in its U.S.-based manufacturing. So it's onshoring 1,000 jobs and expanding its plants across 5 states. We are living in the golden era thanks to this deal maker in chief. And let me tell you about a great deal that you should take advantage of right now. You can experience the miracle at angelpaste.com. In fact, the miracle cream that you have seen me use right here on the show, it took care of my dry hands, and I get that every now and again, but even in the summertime, they have a natural mosquito repellent. They have a facial spray that can help you paint the town red. Whether if you're a guy or a gal, it doesn't matter. It's good stuff for all Americans, and they're Christian owned. These are good people who like to hire veterans. So what's better? I think it's easily said that this Spring, Texas company in the Houston Metroplex, they're off of that Gulf of America, a beautiful place to look at, to enjoy the beaches and the sights and the sounds, the waves, and that salt water that President Trump said, I could be enjoying all of this, but I'd rather be with you, the America people, fighting back. And Angel Paste wants to make sure that you're ready for that next big interview, that next big engagement, that big first date, angelpaste.com, because believe it or not, I think people will notice if you have nice hands. And take care of your skin, make it glowing with this expert organization who loves patriotic values that we love here at the network. Angelpaste.com, experience the miracle today, as you could take care of your skin, and then why not take care of your gut by drinking healthy water? It's common sense with covepure.com/RSBN. $200 off of this great machine right now. You see how nice and aptly the size it is. It can sit right on the countertop. It can go into the kitchen or even a den just off to the side, like a coffee maker. I'm sure you have one of those at home. Add this because, do you know, according to JAMA Pediatrics, doctors and scientists have discovered that children that drink out of the tap on a regular basis can actually lose over 2 points in their IQ because of the pesticides, the chemicals that are in this. So let me tell you about this clear water technology that they have. It takes out 99.9% of the contaminants, especially fluoride. Something so crucial because you might be okay with the toothpaste. It has sodium fluoride in it, most brands. I use something that does not have that. But regardless, I think Americans should choose if they have fluoride in their water or not. And now Utah and Florida, in fact, passing legislation to ban fluoride in the water supply. And Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. dedicating his life to this as an attorney, going after these corporations who lied about it on a daily basis for years and years. Oh, there's no contaminants in the water. Well, I think he can take a victory lap in his very humble nature, because water should be clean and pure because we're mostly made of water. Each and every one of us as human beings, over 70% of this earth is water. Protect what matters, protect your health, drink pure, live pure. Best way to do that is by going to covepure.com/RSBN. 200% off their clear water technology. Get it for you and yours today, a reverse osmosis system so crucial for your health. Thank you for sponsoring us here on the right side of history. And as we get to the bottom of the hour, it's 11:30 on the East Coast, and that means at 1 o'clock Eastern, President Trump will deliver remarks. It's been a big week on safety, on home rule, on realigning what will take place in the federal city. We had the great Ashley Brassfield of Daily Caller on the show earlier this week, and she talked about outside of her residence, there was a shooting that took place. Should not be affecting these wonderful staffers either in the news, in the media, those who are literally making America great again behind those very walls of the White House as we speak. Friends of ours here at the network who often take public transportation, not driving their own vehicle because of the way the parking regulations are in this mass transit district. They should be safe. Their families should be safe. And people, even though with our technology now and since COVID, a lot of people do get that option to work at home or they can work digitally. Still, in many cases, our government needs to be there in the federal city to have these meetings, to have these crucial discussions to make America great again. And our media should be safe as well as our elected officials in a peaceful and patriotic manner. And we saw what happened in the CDC or at the CDC in Atlanta, Georgia, in the Peach State. Just absolute tragedy on Friday with a maniac shooting up that building and then taking his own life in a cowardly way. But let's see what happens here. President Trump hitting the ground running with the home rule authority that is granted in the Constitution. Actually, Congress really has that authority ultimately to regulate the safety within the District of Columbia. We have a great interview with Jim Paff later that details actually that very topic, because in the early days of this constitutional republic, people were actually running around from Princeton, New Jersey to Allentown, all the way down to what became the District of Columbia, ultimately running away from political persecution in those very, very early days. And by design, the District of Columbia was always meant to be a federal city, not another state like the modern Democrats want to make it so they can add 2 more Senate seats to Washington, D.C., because they know in a heavily Democrat area like this, I believe over 90% of the registration is Democrat, they simply want a power grab. It's the same thing with wanting to bring Puerto Rico into the apparatus of becoming the 51st state. And that can be an honest discussion. Actually, it was at one point in the Republican platform roughly 25 or so years ago that the state of Puerto Rico should actually happen instead of just simply being a territory. And that's a discussion that will further happen. But the Democrats clearly want a power grab because they cannot win elections. And now it's been exposed over the course of the last couple of weeks what gerrymandering is. And maybe for some of our viewers, they did not know exactly what it did, but each state does it slightly differently. And within the Texas Constitution, the Texas lawmakers have every right to redraw those lines. And my personal opinion is that it's cowardly to run away from your constituents and to go to places like New York and Illinois and California, places where those residents have run away from, to move to places like Arizona and Idaho, to Montana, down to Georgia, and to Tennessee, the Carolinas, the free sunshine state of Florida. And it's not just for the water and the mountains and the better sunshine that happens roughly year-round. It's for better, simpler, more common sense Republican MAGA policies that allow you to keep more wealth in your pockets. There's places that don't have income tax, like Tennessee and Florida. There are, it's Georgia that lowered it, but now Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones, Trump endorsed for the gubernatorial position in 2026, wants to fully eliminate that and finish the job he started as the president of the Senate in the peach state of Georgia. So all of these discussions ongoing as President Trump has perhaps the biggest moment, the biggest lens of his presidency come tomorrow, visiting the beautiful municipality of Anchorage, Alaska, with a foreign visitor, President Vladimir Putin, to sit down, something that the Russian president does not have to do. But we know that President Trump has an amazing way of bringing friends and foe together to discuss what could be, in some cases, generational or decades-long differences. We know that this war going on now over 3.5 years has led to the death of over 1 million Russians and Ukrainians. And President Trump has been consistent, whether he's been on legacy media items with sometimes very nasty reporters and mean people who try to claim the Russia hoax as now it's been debunked. What Barack Hussein Obama's administration did regarding Crossfire Hurricane and the Steele dossier, and the attempt to create political prisoners, including people like Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro. Our friend Dinesh D'Souza, he went to jail for contributing too much to a congressional candidate by mistake. The last time I checked, that was a hand slap towards the Obama campaign when they did the exact same thing. There wasn't any jail time for that. But an Obama judge made sure to see it that someone had too much free speech. Someone had too much influence writing books and making movies and telling the truth about the Democrat Party. And that was in the form of the great Dinesh D'Souza. We've seen the antics of a once arguably great, truly liberal party that believed in free speech, that believed in that classic liberalism of civil rights. That party from the 50s, the 60s, especially the Northern Democrats, they're gone now. I mean, show me one if you can, but as I look at these races locally, whether it's Virginia to New Jersey to New York City, coming up now in the fall, Mamdani, if he gets in control, he's a communist. He has said he wants to take over your farmers market on Saturdays. I'd love to hear from you. If you want your farmers market locally to be taken over by the government, please feel free to opine. Feedback at rsbn.tv. I have a feeling that that poll will go 100% in the direction of American freedom. As we thank our sponsors here on the right side of history chapter. You want to knock out your Medicare to-do list? This is the place to go. Call now. Don't delay. Call today. 833-438-3359. Compare every Medicare plan and make sure that these organizations aren't going around you. You want to have people in your corner during this, and President Trump's administration actually tackling this very issue to make sure that Medicare fraud stops in the country. It's a discussion over the 2020 census, in fact, where you have Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security benefits actually going to illegal aliens. So does that really provide for a true census as it's counting every person in a congressional district rather than the legal resident there, regardless of demographic, sex, religious background? That's why Chapter exists, to make sure that you can get the best bang for your buck and make sure that those skyrocketing costs don't continue to go up. So again, call today, don't delay, 833-438-3359. Thank you for your sponsorship on the right side of history. And now something that affects most Americans is credit card debt. It's skyrocketed under the inflation of Bidenomics and the auto pen, $36 trillion in debt. The president attempting to reverse this with all of these great trade deals, whether it be the Gulf states to what took place with the United Kingdom and these peace deals. And now, as I mentioned, with those investments, $600 billion coming from the European Union and $720 billion in regards to an energy compact. But how about Apple, a true American company, coming back $600 billion in the United States? Why does that matter? For pdsdebt.com/RSBN, and hopefully bring down costs. But in the meantime, give them a call today or visit their website by getting your free assessment. They do not check the credit score. That is not required, which is a good thing because you don't want your credit even dinged more when you're trying to figure out how to solve the issue so you can have a bright smile and enjoy your life. Debt can be very stressful. Get away from it. Break free from that debt. It's biblical. Bible actually talks directly about debt management. Start saving today. pdsdebt.com/RSBN. Get that free assessment. Don't wait. Don't keep putting it off. I know how it can be when there's something daunting and frightening like debt in your life. Get a free quote, custom options. It's all secure. Again, no credit score required. See if you qualify in as little as 30 seconds. pdsdebt.com/RSBN. As we are awaiting President Trump today at 1 o'clock Eastern to touch on a number of different items. A big week for him, but when's it not a big week for President Trump? You have safety, home rule being done in Washington, D.C., the follow-up by Jeanine Pirro, the D.C. United States attorney and former judge, also a DA in Westchester County, New York, where she's from. She knows how to handle the bad guys and how to implement law enforcement at the highest level. In addition to Doug Burgum, the Secretary of the Interior, there for that wonderful meeting on Monday. SecDef Pete Hegseth, AG Pam Bondi, and FBI Director Kash Patel to make sure that the federal city is safe and beautiful for you to enjoy, not only as a workplace or a place to live, but also for you and your family to visit. And speaking of safety this week, we had the opportunity to interview the new Director of Public Affairs at CISA, and she's a friend of the network here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. You might remember her from her Peach State days in Georgia, leading local politics and recruiting great candidates to help save this nation. She's now protecting it from behind the scenes when it comes to cybersecurity and this new AI revolution. It's the Director of Public Affairs for CISA, Marcy McCarthy. Please enjoy this interview. And welcome to RSBN's live desk. It's the Director of Public Affairs at the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency. It's Marcy McCarthy, a friend of the show. And now you have been at CISA for 2 months. Can you explain to us why CISA does and why it matters so much to the American people.
Well, thanks, Robert, for having me here today. It is so great to see you and you doing so well. I have been at CISA for 2 months and it has flown by. CISA actually is America's cyber defense agency, and what we do is protect the homeland in cyberspace. And that means critical infrastructure for everyday Americans, from 911 systems, telecom, hospital infrastructure, just across the board. And what was very interesting when I learned by coming here is all the other things that we touch upon, like special events like the World Cup that's coming up, and we just did the whole World Cup series here. Additionally, Super Bowl and the Army 250th Parade, we're protecting the critical infrastructure there. We also work with our regional partners to protect national treasures and historic sites like the Liberty Bell in Pennsylvania, in Philly, where I had to go a couple weeks ago and tour Lincoln Stadium for FIFA, and then, go to the Liberty Bell. We got to go to the top of Constitutional Hall, which was pretty amazing. It was a scorching hot day, Robert, but what it gave us is a total appreciation for the breadth and depth of CISA and what we do and how we protect the critical infrastructure in everyday Americans and the safety of them.
And Director McCarthy, can you share a recent high-level example of the operational impact of CISA and how it's protecting these everyday Americans?
Well, thanks, Robert, for asking me that question. We were out in Las Vegas last week at the Black Hat Conference, which is the premier conference for cyber defenders, threat hunters, and cybersecurity professionals across the world. And we convened in Las Vegas to share information overall. And what I'm particularly proud of is we worked with the research community to identify a major vulnerability in the Microsoft Exchange server. And working with that researcher, we were able to announce that vulnerability during the Black Hat briefings and timed it with a release of a report, an advisory that alerted everybody. This was done again in partnership with Microsoft. And then just 12 hours later, we're able to issue an emergency directive. And this was the first one in the Trump administration that CISA did issue. And this was all done at a major conference. What we were able to do is protect our critical infrastructure here in the federal civilian agencies that we do protect, and alert the rest of the community out there to lock down their environments and update with a patch by Monday of this prior week.
Now, I know that CISA actually recently announced grants at state and local levels. How does that support your mission?
Well, we are very committed to our core mission, our statutory mission here at CISA. Specifically, we just announced several grants that will enable the state, local, territorial, and tribal communities to have access to cybersecurity services and use that money to protect their critical infrastructure. Our deadline for that grant request is tomorrow, August 15th. And if you go to CISA.gov, you can find more information about that. But I want to encourage all your viewers that are in leadership positions in your counties and your state and local governments and territories and tribal areas to go ahead and submit for this grant, because it can make a world of difference. It can provide cybersecurity services, training, access to CISA services as well, like vulnerability management, scanning, again, all protecting the critical infrastructure in everyday lives of Americans.
And does your office see vulnerabilities, whether it be urban to suburban to rural America? And as you mentioned, the tribes too, because sometimes it seems as if those living, let's say, quote unquote, off the grid may miss out on these extraordinary grants that they can take advantage of for their communities so they can secure their local infrastructure.
Well, for example, that kind of grant money can help upgrade and bolster a 911 system or your DMV system. So the everyday services that you have as Americans that your taxpayer dollars fund and have access to, we are there to protect the critical infrastructure of those services in the communities. But it is up to the communities themselves to make those investments, and the funds are available to them right there at their fingertips. And we had, again, over $100 million waiting to be distributed, but you have to apply and go to CISA.gov to do so.
And how can the American people support this very important mission?
Well, we're up for renewal. And we have the Cybersecurity Information Sharing Act of 2015 coming up and might expire on September 30th of this year. So what we're asking is every American to call your congressman, call your senator, and tell them to reinstate the CISA 2015 Act. It's a great call to action. Every American should call, because protecting your critical infrastructure and having the homeland protected in cyberspace is a duty of every American, and we want to continue that mission. Additionally, this bill enables the private and public sector to work in collaboration to share information with on a voluntary basis, but do so in a manner that is in real time and respects the privacy of those that are sharing the information. That allows us to protect the threat landscape, and again, go back to the critical infrastructure of everyday Americans out there in your communities. And we want to continue to do that for all America.
And something that should be bipartisan, and a great time right now for that, because Congress having its August recess, so they're most likely in their districts speaking to their constituents. So you might get that one-on-one time with your congressman and your senator to discuss the critical infrastructure to protect the United States. And Marcy, you mentioned that you had that Las Vegas conference. I'm so interested with AI and technology and securing the homeland. Will you be taking this on the road as well, this message, not just in Vegas, but I believe you have a women's leadership conference coming up. So does CISA plan on getting out there and meeting with people to help make them aware of that this organization exists in the first place?
Well, I'm looking forward to traveling to Dallas on Monday and speaking to the many women in Dallas overall on the great things that CISA is doing. But we are out there across America connecting with our communities. So many of us are out there speaking on a regional basis and at conferences, meetings, and events. We encourage you to actually visit us at CISA.gov and request us as a speaker. We're also coming up on October, which is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and we have many, many events planned throughout the country where we're going to connect with all Americans and our critical infrastructure, our state and local partners. Just, again, building the awareness of the importance of cybersecurity in everyday lives. It's wonderful for us. We have to make America cyber secure again.
And RSBN's Live Desk is very happy to help in that endeavor to protect the homeland. Now, you did mention that helping with Microsoft to make sure that they have safe systems. Will there be more public and private partnerships to collaborate on in the near future?
Well, 100%. So one of the things that we do here at CISA is work with all the software company and technology companies. And to date, we have on board 319 technology software companies to commit to creating and developing secure code. We're really proud of that partnership initiative, and that across the board ensures that all of our technology, all of our system, all of our endpoints, all of our devices are safer for all Americans and protecting the homeland in cyberspace.
Director of Public Affairs for the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, Marcy McCarthy. Thank you for joining us on RSBN's Live Desk, and please come back soon. We can't wait to hear about your trip to Dallas, Texas. We love the Lone Star State, and we love this country, and we love to find ways to help secure it as you are doing on a daily basis.
Well, thank you for having me today, Robert. It's great to see you.
Your government working for you in real time. Thank you to Director of Public Affairs of CISA, Marcy McCarthy, for joining us on Right Side Broadcasting Network. As we thank our sponsors, allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, your go-to for your medical health. Now it's ivermectin and mebendazole going for 25% off. and then code RSBN10, as you're familiar with, RSBN10 for that additional 10% off the rest of the order. If you want the freedom to choose your treatment, but you don't have the doctor who will prescribe it, all you need is truly All Family Pharmacy. They carry medications many providers refuse to, like the ivermectin, as I mentioned, mebendazole, NAD+, methylene blue, 200 essential medications, antibiotics, and emergency medical kits, which can make a massive difference for you in your life. The prescriptions you need, in fact, just request the medication you want online, and once it's at the doctor, you'll get it within 2 to 3 days, in some cases 24 hours, by going to allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Their goal is simple: put health back into your pocket and make America healthy again. Because if you need the treatment, what if the PBMs get in the way of the insurance companies and don't prescribe it because they own the pharmacy down the street? Or there's a massive natural disaster, a flood. We just saw those in Milwaukee. It canceled part of the Wisconsin State Fair, and we saw the tragedy of the Guadalupe River, a once-in-a-generation storm encompassing central Texas and the loss of life that took place there, but also the ramifications of that loss of the beautiful Mystic Camp, that Christian camp that counseled countless children in the ways of the Lord, and the parents who are now left without them. It always leads to things being shut down and just chaos. If you don't have that medicine cabinet stocked with things that can actually protect you in those times, it can be rather scary. So again, allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Watching out for you. No red tape, no bureaucracy. If you don't have insurance, no issue. Just prescription medication brought to you in real time. Again, scan that QR code now, allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. And Tax Network USA. If you have those back taxes, settle them today. No hassle, no worry, because you have to protect yourself from the IRS. There's still the remnants of the 80,000 IRS agents that the Biden administration put into place. Now, some of them are helping on the border, but you have to protect yourself from the IRS regardless. Settle those back taxes today. And I understand, too, if you just started a business, those books might be all over the place and you don't know where to start. That's okay. Just go to these great Patriot experts. In many cases, some of them did work for the IRS, so they know the system and they know how to help our great viewers. Visit tnusa.com/RSBN or call 800-357-1415. That is 800-357-1415. Call today. Don't delay. Settle those back taxes now at Tax Network USA, tnusa.com/RSBN. Thank you for sponsoring us on the right side of history. And it seems like the winds have calmed down and Old Glory is relaxing on this beautiful Thursday in the United States of America. Your federal city right there, as well as our humble studios here in the loveliest village on the plains, Auburn, Alabama, which has been a hustle and bustle the last few days. Students moving in for that next semester, some of them for the first time or transferring, ready wide-eyed to enjoy this golden era of America. What a time it is. As President Trump said, we were there on May 1st at the rival school in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, where legends are made, the University of Alabama. And President Trump said just that. Man, I wish I had your youth. Take advantage of it and take those risks as soon as possible, calculated risks. And I can understand, too, how eager it is to get out there and do what you want to do, but allow the career to unfold in such a way where you might learn a job or two. I was actually speaking to a friend yesterday. He graduated recently. It was actually at a church function, and he said, I just want to get in the game. I want to get into one of these campaigns. And I said, I understand what it's like to be right there. In the meantime, he's just working as a bouncer locally and doing some other great side hustles. And you can learn so much from those jobs that seem rather menial, or you don't want to do them in the first place. As I've mentioned many times before, out of college, one of my first jobs being in restaurants, it taught me such an aspect about sales, about communications, relations with people. How do you deal with folks when they're rather unreasonable? Well, you turn them to 6 o'clock on RSBN on Thursday nights to go watch The Voice of Reason, of course. But other than that, you learn how to deal with people at a very human level. And so that is a time to celebrate in this United States of America as we are approaching that 250th date of the foundation of our country. This president providing that golden path. And it's not because anyone worships Donald Trump. No one worships him. We just appreciate his leadership style. And he is on the correct side of history, as we are here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, having been your go-to network for rallies for over a decade now. And since January, your go-to live desk, because we don't cut and edit the speeches or the hearings. We allow you to see what your government is up to, whether it be the 45th and 47th President of the United States, which we'll hear from in roughly 65 minutes, or your 50th Vice President, J.D. Vance, or the 119th Congress, all moving at a breakneck pace because we know that the other major party has stated it as such. Governor Newsom even saying on his Twitter yesterday, trying to mock President Trump regarding this gerrymandering debate that has taken a national exposure between Texas, California, Illinois, New York, and some other states as well, saying that they want to stop the agenda, that they want to impeach him. No hips Hakeem Jeffrey from New York is ready to do that if he becomes Speaker of the House. So where does that leave you in the engagement of the midterms? Because historically, and that's something that was so brilliant of the campaign just last year, everyone who emailed and got tickets made sure to get into that list of becoming a Trump precinct captain. So instead of being overwhelmed with having to go to hundreds of different doors and not knowing your neighbors, you can pick out the people down the street, 15 or so people, and go knock on their door and get to know them and have a coffee, say hello, and actually become friends in the process, because it's not so much Republican versus Democrat. It's more of we the people versus big government socialists and a deep state. The globalists really are at the end of their domination, the neoliberal and neocon agendas over the course of the last 30 years. And the progressive movement, which started arguably in 1913 with that pesky federal income tax, tariffs are now being used again, and common sense back in the Beltway. We're going to take a quick commercial break. Stick with us, though, here. President Trump will be speaking in roughly 1 hour from now on Right Side Broadcasting Network.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat Live Show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You can scan that QR code now, RSBN10. That is the code, easy to remember, for 10% off. This is ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, antibiotics that will save you and yours from bacterial and viral infections, NAD+, and much, much more. 200 essential medications and emergency medical kits, the meds you trust delivered to your door. Welcome back to RSBN. And now the wind is blowing slightly, so Old Glory happily on display on the front and north and south lawns of the White House. Those big, beautiful flag poles as President Trump will speak roughly 1 hour from now. I'm Robert McNeely. It's always a joy to be with you on Thursday, August 14th of the year of our Lord, 2025, a golden jubilee year, so much worth celebrating, so much to be happy about, so much to continue to work towards in this big tent movement known as Make America Great Again. And President Trump touching on making America safe again, highlighting that this week on Monday, but also with this truth that Washington, D.C. has one of the highest rates of crime in the world. It's more than third world countries. The city's homicide rate is more than that of Mexico City, Bogota, which is in Colombia, Islamabad, Pakistan. And it's higher than Fallujah. You remember Fallujah in Iraq? All of the terrible violence that took place there. But these are the official statistics released under these corrupt cities' officials. We're talking about 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times that of these so-called third world nations. In fact, a precinct commander in Washington, D.C. was just suspended for allegedly manipulating the violent crime statistics. And the D.C. Police Union likewise says the real numbers are much, much higher because the Democrat government of D.C. has largely stopped investigating, arresting, and prosecuting most crime. The published statistics don't even capture a fraction of the actual violence. No one is arrested for shoplifting. Citizens living in fear have largely given up calling the police, instead choosing not to walk the streets nor go to work even after dark, essentially becoming captive prisoners in their own city. Now, stores lock up their merchandise behind glass walls, and gang youth violence is so common it goes largely unreported. Vehicle theft in D.C. is more than 3 times the national average. It skyrocketed, in fact, from 2018 to 2023, up over 547%, if you could believe that. Carjackings, mostly teenagers. Schools are completely dysfunctional. Citizens are afraid to speak up or call the police, and they might be targeted as a result of the gang violence. The real crime rates are probably 5 to 10 times what have been reported. And D.C. has been under siege from thugs and killers, but now D.C. is back and under federal control where it belongs, under the home rule. Now White House is in charge. The military and our great police will liberate the city, scrape away the filth, and make it clean and habitable again. President Trump really detailing this on Truth Social just earlier yesterday, actually in the evening, around 7:33 last night. This has been a highlight of the week. So think about this. Only about half of crime, especially violent crime, goes reported in the United States. We saw the ghastly, disgusting sucker punch from a man on a woman in Cincinnati, Ohio, that nearly killed her, a single mom of 3. Her youngest daughter is 5 years old. She hit her head on that pavement so hard, it's difficult to watch. And she has boldly and bravely gone on a number of different shows to speak her piece. But we know it's the globalists and people who like to throw race-baiting items to see what sticks, to make money, ultimately. People like Benjamin Crump, who would have been in there if that happened to be a difference in skin color. And it's sad, but it's true. And this lovely lady, Holly, simply said, I don't want any difference between black or white or Asian or Hispanic or whatever. We're all God's children. That's the truth of it. I mean, it's common sense, and most Americans believe that. I've had the privilege of traveling this great nation, and I firmly believe that with all the people I've met. I've really never encountered what the far left likes to throw around more often than not, that everything's racist, and that people like Sydney Sweeney somehow are objectifying and putting down other people simply because of the way they look and simply for trying to market and sell an American icon known as American Eagle and their jeans. I mean, how ridiculous can the far left now become? They like to take on people who are on the Presidential Fitness Commission. People like Harrison Butker for simply stating that I honor my wife. She is wonderful for helping raise our family and her role in the family. He did not say that women should not work or anything of the ilk, but you have the far left, The View, in fact, which is now canceled on ABC, who wanted to go after the man for being a chauvinist and for the fact that he was a football player, so it's okay that, of course, he has that white privilege. Nothing could be further from the truth, and that's why we advocate for what is good and honest and true right here on this fine network, Right Side Broadcasting Network, your go-to live desk in order to help provide you with the information so you can make up your own mind. And good people like kalshi.com/RSBN helping us stay on the air to get that message directly to you. KALSHI.com/RSBN. Trade on the most important events in America. And questions like, will Elon Musk start a third party? He'd like to call it the American Party. What say you about that? You can write in at feedback@rsbn.tv. Also, questions like, who will President Trump pardon this year? As we get into the dog days of summer, people returning to school, that fall classic right around the corner. Will the LA Dodgers repeat their championship just as the Florida Panthers did in the National Hockey League with the Stanley Cup? So it's culture, it's sports, politics, music, and more. All the questions affecting this great nation domestically and abroad. Kalshi.com/RSBN. Thank you for your sponsorship on the right side of history, and experience the miracle of a Christian-owned company that hires veterans out of Spring, Texas, and around the country. They love the Gulf of America as much as we do. It's the experience that you cannot miss. The Miracle at angelpaste.com. Their extraordinary products, from the OG Miracle Cream that you see there that will have your skin glowing. It's vitamin B infused, non-GMO, no chemicals. How about a natural mosquito repellent? Still good for this time of year as you enjoy your late summer barbecues leading up to Labor Day. And also a facial spray for guys and gals. So they can go paint that town red. And guys, trust me, you could use this product because you could still grip that tackle box after you take care of the dry hands or the eczema or just anything that looks different or weird with skincare. Something important to do, especially before you hit the date night on that first date, or whether it's been your 500th date and it's your absolute love of your life, your spouse, your sweetheart. MiracleAngelPaste.com can help with that, especially the Miracle Cream. So check them out today, angelpaste.com. And it's about 6 minutes after the top of the hour. Good afternoon on the East Coast, and good morning to the rest of America. Thank you for joining us here at Right Side Broadcasting Network on this sunshiny Thursday, August 14th, 2025. And we've had some great discussions this week pertaining to safety in the federal city, to the Kennedy Center Awards, and those great nominees President Trump announced yesterday, from George Strait to Michael Crawford, Gloria Gaynor, Sylvester Stallone, and the rock band known as KISS, which was founded by Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley so many years ago. People that not only contributed to arts and entertainment, but also have given so much back to the United States of America and the world as a whole with their God-given gifts. Well, we also dived into policy and another great discussion with our dear friend Jim Paff. Please enjoy the first half of this interview. And welcome back to the RSBN Live Desk. Jim Paff, the president of the Conservative Caucus. Always wonderful to have you, sir. Let's talk about gerrymandering. That I think has become a household term for us politicos. We love this term, and whether it's Texas Republicans or Illinois Democrats, just who's right in all this mess, or is everyone wrong about it?
Well, there's always some degree, if you're against political drawing of lines, then there's always going to be some accusation of gerrymandering. You know, the term was founded in 1812 when Elbridge Gerry was the governor of Massachusetts, and he had drawn this map that snaked around, like it was described, like a salamander, to try to, you know, get in one of his people. And so they merged the two together. That's how we get the word gerrymander. You know, listen, we've been doing political drawing of boundaries from the beginning of this country. Whatever the majority in the legislature was, and keep in mind, we weren't always quite a firm two-party system, but we were fairly early on. But whoever was in charge in the legislature was the ones who would get the final vote, obviously. So political drawing of boundaries, in my opinion, is not a wrong or bad thing, because in recent decades, we've had more and more states, including California, by the way, is one of them, Colorado, where I used to be in quite a bit, have developed systems of so-called independent commissions who are going to draw these boundaries based upon certain principles. Well, in California, that hasn't worked out very well. Only 17% of the districts are Republican districts, yet about 42 or more percent of the people in the state vote Republican. So this is, it's a debate that is interesting in a way. What's important, though, about this current iteration of it is that finally Republicans are taking the fight in this sort of battle directly to the Democrats. Democrats have been truly gerrymandering for years. You talk about a salamander district, take a look at the Illinois congressional map and look at this one Democrat district that goes from just southwest of Chicago all the way down to the Mississippi River in a very narrow, they clearly did that. They've got 8, in my opinion, arguably 9 districts that are like salamanders going into Chicago and Cook County, where you've got a buttload of Democrats, so they could make those Democrat districts. And so, and that's where the Texas legislators ran to. Democrats are losing this argument because their argument is bad, and they ran to a place that makes their argument look even more foolish. 2, actually for 3 things. 2, Republicans are actually taking the fight. People are understanding what's really going on now and what Democrats have done, and it's not harming Republicans. 3, the map that Texas is drawing is actually fixing gerrymandering. I mean, it's going to take away 5 Democrat seats, but those were gerrymandered Democrat seats that were drawn in, again, to a major metropolitan area that had a lot of Democrat votes. Now that major metropolitan area is going to be surrounded with actual Democrat seats, and they're fixing that. So this is not something, Republicans are winning the argument. This is not something that's causing any detrimental problem to the United States. It's fixing a lot of problems, in my opinion.
And something that's actually mind-boggling to me, to your point, Jim, I believe it was Stephen Colbert pointing that out to Governor J.B. Pritzker on the now canceled Late Show as of May of next year, that 13th district almost looked like an earthworm on LSD, I believe is what he said. And to your point, this is my thing that I'm rather obsessed with, because at this hearing, or at this press conference that the governor was at with the cowards from the Texas Democrats who ran to DuPage County, Illinois, the DuPage County chairwoman, Deb Conroy, was there and said, Republican states run maps, Democrat states run maps. Is it fair? Maybe not, was her conclusion. But until all 50 states agree, it will never be. But here's the thing I thought about Democrats. They're always complaining about democracy, 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 and the popular vote. Well, in Illinois specifically, roughly 45% of people voted for Donald Trump, yet they have over 83% representation in Congress from Democrats. Does not seem like a fair map.
No, I mean, take a look at the 1st and 2nd congressional district. There's that one big salamander thing I described. But if you take a look at the 1st and 2nd congressional districts, both of them go into Southside Chicago and Southside Cook County and go all the way down almost to Champaign, Illinois. There's also, there is a compactness standard, which I think is an important one. But there's also a communities of interest standard that is useful for drawing these districts. And there's nobody in rural middle Illinois that has any community interest similar to people in Cook County. Like their only connection to Cook County is it's part of Illinois. But people in Cook County are totally different in their lifestyles and what they're thinking about. But they literally drew those districts, one of them to make sure Jesse Jackson Jr. could have a seat. Okay, it's insane what they've been doing. But the reality is that it's fair to have, and in fact, I prefer political drawing of districts, because you can hold radical problems like what's going on in Illinois accountable when you can make a big deal about it. But secondly, if you send it off to commissions, that becomes an even worse problem because they're very hard. They're typically not neutral. Like I've said many times, when we've talked, 6,000 years of recorded human history proves the radical corruption of mankind. Like you can do your independent commission, you can do your political drawing. You're not fixing the human problem in either instance. And one has its benefits and right detractions. Others have the same things, just of a different sort. So listen, I'm glad mostly, though, that Republicans are finally realizing, don't play nice on this. Democrats are not. And you and I could have an entire half hour to an hour discussion on all the things that Democrats do to rig elections. And I don't mean that in the sense of stealing votes, although there might be some risk of that in the things they do. They have worked very hard through Mark Elias's efforts legally, for example, not allowing, actually having challenges to cleaning up voter rolls of old moved people and even of people that are illegal immigrants that might be on the voter rolls. He has fought that tooth and nail. They have fought for multi-day elections. They have fought for the ability to count ballots for days and days after elections. All of this is harmful to our overall system, but beneficial to them because they undertook the efforts and then put the efforts on the ground to make it happen. Just think about this. In California, you can gather, you can register yourself as a vote gatherer and gather as many ballots as you want that were sent out by the mail. But let's just analyze what's happening there. Someone walks up to your door, they're trying to get your ballot, and what's happening there often, if they haven't already closed their ballot, it's electioneering potentially. You got people that can go and influence the vote that person's going to make. That person may have answers to questions they want, and the person can seem neutral but answer the question in a way that helps their candidate. We banned electioneering around voting booths for most of this country's history on same-day elections at a physical location. We should go back to same-day elections. Democrats benefit from non-same-day elections. And last thing here, I know I'm going a little long, but I'm going to tell you this. I benefited from multi-day elections. Before Colorado went to complete mail voting, there was a 20-day elections in the county clerk's office, plus they expanded absentee ballots. Now, I haven't seen most Republicans do much about this, even since then. That was 2006. We won a marriage amendment effort with nearly 60% of the vote, because we took advantage of that system. We worked it hard. We put our people in line to be able to do that. Republicans have found that all icky, and I get a lot of pushback when I talk about this story. But Democrats have not been afraid to do that. So they rig elections in favor of how they can do elections rather than having it be neutral, same-day voting, and you can't electioneer, and people need to show proper valid ID that they are eligible to vote. The Democrats have been good at going away from that. Republicans haven't done enough to fight it. This was a good battle.
Superb points, Jim. That's why we love having you on the show. And I can even up the ante slightly because the 2020 census had its problems and its real life consequences for those with Medicare and Medicaid benefits, Social Security benefits, because we've seen, thanks to DOGE and other efforts, that illegal aliens receiving these benefits that they did not pay into in the first place. And the whole idea is the concept of one citizen, one vote. And that's why our founders were so right about this human corruption. As, again, like you said, we could have a whole show on Democrat corruption and just simply mankind and the history of the world. But look to Thomas Jefferson, John Adams. I believe Benjamin Franklin even said, democracy in the purest form, unlike a constitutional republic, is like two sheeps and the lamb going to lunch. We know how that will result. And then, of course, Alexander Hamilton, the first Secretary of the Treasury, also speaking to how important local governance is. And we know that Thomas Jefferson really loved those townships. Now, let's go to a focus on tomorrow's meeting in Alaska, Anchorage, Alaska, where I covered local politics. And even in my townhouse, when I was there 3 months into it, I did a whole local story on the mail-in ballots that came directly to my door. 3 different people, 3 different former residents that I was like, wow, we could have some real issues with this ranked choice voting, but this will be the location where President Trump will be meeting with President Putin, high stakes, and much of the world watching to see if this can come to an end, the Ukrainian and Russian conflict.
Yeah, I think Donald Trump has proven that he has a brilliant approach to how he deals with leaders internationally. Both are more friendly leaders in Europe, where he just got an amazing trade deal and has gotten NATO back in line, but also with those who are either our enemies or we don't have a very good relationship, and that latter portion being with Russia. Listen, Putin is evil in what he did to go after Ukraine and the continuation of this war. I think it's an outrage. But in reality, the death and destruction that are happening there easily took place because Joe Biden was president. I don't think there are not very many people, except for the most ardent Democrat Joe Biden supporter, who don't recognize that Joe Biden's weakness had some part to play in how this thing got out of hand. Donald Trump is avoiding war, avoiding getting us involved militarily, directly or indirectly, and he's done a fantastic job of that. So what's at stake here is Vladimir Putin is already hurting somewhat economically. I mean, they don't have a destroyed economy, but it's a strained one because of some of the things that have gone into effect right now. And now Donald Trump is intending to take the next step and not only up the ante in terms of tariffs, but also to tariff things that come through in a third-party nature, and which could also harm places like India that have relied upon Russian oil, and they haven't connected with us. That was part of the deal that he's trying to negotiate with them. So he's going to walk into this meeting in Anchorage, and I feel confident. He's already laid some of the groundwork. He's said what he thinks needs to happen and what his demands are. Putin is responding by meeting. That is significant, by the way. Putin does not have to do that. And I'm confident that if Putin is not going to play the game, Trump's going to walk out, and he's going to make it worse for Russia. I think Putin understands that, too. So I think it's a good move. I think we're going to see something very interesting on Friday. I have no idea what tomorrow will bring when they get together. I don't know what the outcome is going to be, but I suspect that it's going to be a movement forward to stop this really carnage that's happening in Ukraine on both sides. And that would be good for the world, certainly good for Europe. And Donald Trump deserves the Nobel Peace Prize. If he can pull this off, if he's able to, and he doesn't get the Nobel Peace Prize, I know he's not trying for that, and I know he doesn't care about it one way or the other, but it would be warranted in this case because he has helped really solve a lot of the major conflicts that are going around in the world in recent months, and kudos to that. Putin's, though, behind an 8 ball, and he's going to have to deal, it seems to me.
You know, based on that point, too, Jim, it seems as if President Trump more interested in the Kennedy Center honors, as he mentioned yesterday, maybe next year we'll honor Trump than getting that Nobel Peace Prize. But it's echoing the same opinion you have, not only here with Claudia Tenney in New York and various congressmen and senators throughout the country, but also worldwide appeal from the government of Pakistan to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, among many others, and including peace deals that you just don't normally hear in the legacy media, because the worst conflict since World War II, arguably, when it came to bloodshed, the DCR with the Democratic Republic of the Congo and the Republic of Rwanda. President Trump helped solve that. He helped solve Armenia and Azerbaijan, Iran to Israel. So many of these traditional conflicts, and Arab and Muslim countries coming to the assistance of Israel, saying this has to stop the Iranian aggression. So he truly is the deal maker in chief. But we seem to have this agreement between Texas Democrats and former president of Russia, Medvedev, who is still very involved in the Russian Federation, using the terms going nuclear. Do you think there's this situation of good cop, bad cop in the form of President Putin and the former Russian president with trying to stay afloat, as you mentioned, with the Russian economy?
Well, Medvedev has been one of Putin's closest allies politically in Russia, both as the president of Russia and since he's left that political office. Yeah, there's always going to be a good cop, bad cop there. Medvedev is a very capable politico, so Putin's going to send him out where he needs to. And I don't think he would have made this statement if it didn't have some degree of seriousness behind it. But it's not going to sway Donald Trump. I guarantee you that. Donald Trump is not going to put up with Putin trying to bring that to him. And whatever deal happens is going to be very serious and seriously address the issue of nuclear proliferation in what manner. We do have nuclear deals with Russia. They've mostly worked. I hate to use that term, but they've provided a framework for dealing with that situation. But really, honestly, he can play good cop, bad cop all he wants. Donald Trump has all the cards right now. He really does. Putin doesn't have the cards. He's lost 1 million lives, which frankly it seems he doesn't care too much about. But it's a financial burden to them. They're losing a population of men who are not going to be productive in society. There's a real cost to doing war, and they can lose their stability. They actually went to a gold standard, which is generally good, but it's not good for war. Still got to find money somewhere, and he's not going to be able to have inexhaustible resources in this regard. Donald Trump's got the cards. Putin is a strong actor on the international stage, so he's not going to be some sort of pushover either. But I think that there's a possibility of getting something done. I think the Medvedev comment is a sideshow more than something direct. But Donald Trump's going to treat it very seriously. And I guarantee you, at some level, either in this meeting Friday or elsewhere, Donald Trump's going to aggressively counter this threat of the use of nuclear weapons. He's not going to put up with it. And we can have confidence about that as Americans. So this guy's a great leader and a great negotiator. And a lot of people think, oh my gosh, people are worshiping Donald Trump. There's no reason to worship Donald Trump. He's a failed and flawed human being like the rest of us. He's just a fantastic leader. And he understands what's important and he stays focused on it. That's what leadership is. And all these TDS Republicans and radical leftist Democrats, they don't get that. They're not used to it. And they're losing constantly because Donald Trump keeps his eye on the ball.
Thank you to our sponsors on Right Side Broadcasting Network, allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN, your go-to for online pharmaceutical help, because we know the PBMs are simply out of control. The insurance companies that also have their hands in double dipping with their respective pharmacies. So now 25% off ivermectin, mebendazole, and use code RSBN10 for an additional 10% off. That's RSBN10. You're familiar with that, running that code for some period of time now. Scan the QR code right there to get all of the information on over 200 life-saving medications, because you want the freedom to choose. But why not have that when your doctor says no, no, no? It can happen sometimes, but all you need is All Family Pharmacy. If there's no insurance, there's no red tape, no bureaucracy, just doctors and healthcare partners, pharmacists who care about you and our patriotic values. Now, just request the medication you want online, and it will take 2 to 3 days to get there. In some cases, overnight. You can get that there at roughly 12:30 East Coast time if you order right now. And again, no insurance, no red tape, nothing to worry about, just good life-saving medication that can solve bacterial and viral infections. And with the natural disasters that are also out there, we saw the Milwaukee flooding, cutting short the Wisconsin State Fair recently. Of course, what happened in the Lone Star State of Texas and Central Texas, the Guadalupe River, and the removal of the Mystic Camp because of a once-in-a-generation storm. What does that mean for medicine and taking care of your neighbors and facing those scary things like a new COVID variable that's out there, or variant, in society right now in the dog days of summer? allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN can provide those life-saving medications to stock up your medicine cabinet and also take with you on your summer vacations, like emergency medical kits and antibiotics that can fit on your carry-ons, whether it's plane, train, or automobile. Thank you for your sponsorship. allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Did you know also that your gut health matters. And water, especially contaminated with fluoride and pesticides and chemicals, can really do you a disservice and lead to less energy and also simply getting sick. And Utah, Florida, their state legislatures addressing this head on with the removal of fluoride and toxins out of the water. But I'd like to tell you about covepure.com/RSBN, one of the newer sponsors here at the network, for $200 off that small, tiny machine that seems like it won't take up much space. True. Put it on that kitchen counter in the den, just away from everything else. Your coffee maker is probably 2 or 3 times the size of that, and you'll have life-giving pure water. Think about this. JAMA Pediatrics, they just did a study with scientists and doctors that showed children regularly drinking tap water in the United States can go down more than 2 points in their IQ levels. So you need reverse osmosis systems, regardless of where you live in the country. We saw the crisis of Flint, Michigan just a few years ago, and that contaminated water. And with certain toothpaste products and things that are provided by the dentist, you can go look at those ingredients. Sodium fluoride, something brought to us by big oil magnates like Standard Oil and the Rockefeller family. And really, it's not something you should put near your body at all. Especially, you should have that choice of what is in your water. Everyone in America deserves pure, delicious, life-giving water. covepure.com/RSBN. Their clear water technology, in fact, removing 99.9% of impurities out of your H2O. So get it today. Don't delay. Protect your family. Drink pure, live pure, and protect what matters. covepure.com/RSBN. A great new deal with $200 off. And the White House putting up on Truth Social some success in the space race, because as AI emerges with technologies, we still have that concern on who will be the dominator in space. Make space great again. We know the Space Force started by President Trump to make that 6th branch of the United States military under the scope of the United States Air Force, but President Donald Trump has signed an executive order to strengthen regulations and foster a competitive commercial space industry, ensuring the United States maintains its leading role in commercial use of space. Would you like to go out in a spacesuit like that and just fly with me across the earth? I mean, my goodness, it's something to think about. I don't know if I'd be really calm in a spacesuit like that, just floating around this big blue ball that we call home. But President Trump focused on that space race and making sure that America leads in that. As you saw yesterday, he's also the chairman of the Kennedy Center, making arts great again and showcasing the 35th President of the United States, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, his love for arts and entertainment, unveiling the honorees this year: George Strait and Sylvester Stallone, Michael Crawford, Gloria Gaynor, and the great rock band Kiss, with many of our friends and media colleagues a few short months ago, the White House stating, "I became chairman of the Kennedy Center." That's President Trump, and we will completely reverse it in regards to the infrastructure in that beautiful building as well. We ended the woke political programming. We're restoring the real art form of the Kennedy Center as the premier venue for performing arts anywhere in the country and in the world. President Donald John Trump, and joined by Attorney General Pam Bondi, Rick Grinnell as well on that board, doing an incredible job to make art great again in the form of musicals and plays, also the contemporary and modern versus the traditional operas that you could see at this stunning showcase of American and, quite frankly, world theater. And nominees, as President Trump said, I don't care if they're Republican, Democrat, whatever they are. It doesn't matter. We're honoring their contributions to society and the God-given brilliant talent given to those 4 individuals and that 5th rock band that was created by Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley. Amazing stuff, because I'm a big fan of everyone who was nominated. Growing up just following not only their great films, but also their extraordinary, inspirational music. And I had the opportunity to meet the great Gene Simmons about a decade ago, and what a goofball who clearly loves this country and loves the American way of life. And really all of the stories you should look into, because many of them did not come from privilege. I mean, Sylvester Stallone, before he made Rocky, he was offered $1 million by the production company, and ultimately really trying to find that right person to play that role. Initially not wanting to play the role, but said, I have to play this role. This is my life. This is my contribution. At times turning down $1 million. Would you turn down that amount of money in the 1970s when you're basically homeless and living not paycheck to paycheck, but barely? He had to sell his dog to make that film. And then he went back with that money to go get his dog. I mean, think about that for a moment as you're trying to live and fight for the American dream. Gene Simmons, his family lived in a small Manhattan apartment in New York City. And there were 6 of them at a time, did not speak English, coming from Israel, truly living that American dream in this time now where you see the skyrocketing amount of anti-Semitism. So these are wonderful nominees who have made their mark in society, in the world, and deeply love this great country. So we look forward to President Trump as the host of that event, and that should be a star-studded event. Looking forward to that later on this year, as we have part 2 of our exclusive interview with Jim Paff of the Conservative Caucus, breaking down all of the important issues happening this week and this month in Washington, D.C. It's the Peace Through Strength foreign policy and masterclass that we see on display. And to your point, Jim, I think that we realize as voters, Republican, Democrat, Independent, any honest broker of watching American politics and culture realizes that the last 4 years under the Autopen, we were in deep danger of true nuclear conflict, and that would have meant the end of time. And this president has really exposed that in 200 plus days with his willingness to dive right in, have those tough conversations, but like Ronald Reagan, willing, ready, able to walk away from the table when it's not an America First foreign policy. And we've seen it with Secretary of State Marco Rubio simply saying the overarching umbrella in all of this, if it does not serve the interests of the United States of America, we will not partake, period. And you've seen that strength domestically and internationally. Now, talking about safety, let's get to the Home Rule Act. Monday morning, that was perhaps one of the largest press conferences we've seen in the James S. Brady briefing room, and it's always a star-studded event for the superstar Caroline Leavitt with her weekly or sometimes daily press briefings. But President Trump with his national security apparatus, how do you think this will help the federal city of the District of Columbia? And can some other cities like New York, Chicago, and Los Angeles perhaps not take aim at reporters simply asking questions of those mayors, but rather put the boots on the ground necessary to keep their cities safe?
Well, as it relates to Washington, D.C., there's absolute federal authority to operate there. That federal authority lay with Congress, according to Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, where the federal district, that the Congress has absolute authority, it says, to pass legislation. And the reason for that, by the way, is in 1783, when the Congress under the Articles of Confederation were housed in Philadelphia, they literally got kicked out of Philadelphia because some Revolutionary War veterans were upset about pay obligations. And they ran to Princeton, New Jersey, then they ran down to Annapolis, Maryland, and then eventually up to New York, where when the Constitution was ratified, they determined we need a federal district so that we don't have these problems, because the governor of Pennsylvania didn't protect them in 1783. And they said, well, we got to protect ourselves. We have to account for our own security. That's why Washington, D.C. is and should remain a federal district. If you make it a state, we've got real problems. It is not a safe situation. That said, Donald Trump taking this action is really putting Democrats in a corner. It's not just a practical move to deal with crime and to get what is a murder rate worse than some third world countries, cities in Washington, D.C., even though they claim the that the crime is down. The murder rate is astronomical to even some African major cities. And it's a really bad situation. So it's practically the right thing to do. He has the authority to do it under the Home Rule Act of 1973, which gives these emergency provisions. He's got a total of 32 days to do that. Congress will be back in session, and hopefully Congress will take a stand. I think we need to get rid of D.C. Home Rule and have Congress go back to being the mayor, so to speak, of the city. And so he's but in terms of other cities, since you asked about that, I don't think Donald Trump has authority unless the cities invite him to bring in National Guard troops to help. There would be different authorities. They have their own municipal jurisdiction that is not subject to the federal government in that regard. So that would be an overstep, in my opinion. But it is really putting these Democrat mayors in a corner. They're having to prove why they're not willing to take actions to fix their cities. And I predict that there's going to be some major movement. I don't know that all these Democrat cities are going to turn to Republican ones, but you are going to see a major movement in a lot of these cities of their citizens saying, we're tired of this. We cannot have it, particularly if, and as I predict when, they see improvements in Washington, D.C., which are going to happen very quickly. The demonstrations on the streets against the surge that's happening are going against both the Metro Police in D.C., which the Metro Police Union is behind Donald Trump's move, but also against the federal agents that have been deployed to do this. You're seeing videos right now. People are throwing things at them, attempting to assault them. That does not look good. The American people are going to see that, and especially people that are in these major cities. It's actually ends up being a brilliant political move too, because it reveals these Democrats for what they are. And it's the right stand to take in the right area of the country where he actually can take a stand legally and aggressively move forward. Let's hope Congress comes on board with this. I've said for many years we need to get rid of D.C. Home Rule. I've also said, by the way, we need to overturn what the Confederates did in Virginia, where they took out the portion of the 10-mile square, those slaver Confederates, and which include Arlington County and Alexandria City. That needs to go back in the federal district too. We need to overturn that as well. But that's a side issue. We do need home rule back to go away. I mean, in Washington D.C., it's absurd what they've been doing. They've failed in every way, and the crime rates prove it.
And we saw it in Cincinnati, suburbanites going out for a birthday party. And I think all of us relate with Holly. We know her first name. She's protecting her last name for her children. And her youngest, she's a single mom of 3. That 5-year-old has PTSD as a result of what she saw on television. A man who was released from Fulton County under the jurisdiction in Georgia of Fani Willis. And he makes his way up to Cincinnati with a rap sheet longer than anything else, because you have these elected DAs and in some cases mayors or even attorneys general who want to side with the criminal, or seemingly, this person can have rehabilitation, although they're guilty of carjackings to armed robbery to attempted murder. And famously in California, you have, it's just going to be a misdemeanor, or, not so much. If you steal something around $90 or so, we'll just give you a slap on the wrist, especially if you're a minor, because you could be rehabilitated. I mean, nothing could be more ridiculous. And I think that's why George Gascon lost re-election.
Yeah, and in terms of those small dollar crimes that they're letting go, the exact opposite approach was taken by Rudy Giuliani and my now deceased friend and acquaintance Bernie Kerik. When it was very controversial, but they went after those small crimes, and it made a huge difference in reducing crime overall in New York City. New York City had become, after Giuliani's term, a wonderful place to visit for anyone to go to. It still had crime, and it wasn't perfect. You wouldn't go up to the Bronx, for example, maybe. But it was, Manhattan in particular was really fun to go to. They revolutionized, what do they call it? the triangle there. Anyway, the downtown area. I can't believe I'm forgetting it. But anyway, they
in the Times Square area.
Times Square. Thank you. They Times Square was a scary place to go before Giuliani became mayor. It became a wonderful place to go. It revitalized so much in terms of the economy of that downtown. And since de Blasio, it's gone way downhill. So to go after these small crimes is something that needs to happen. To argue that you should not go to them is quite wrong. There needs to be a consequence for theft and violence. That's what I'm for criminal justice reform. But the reform is to not send people to jail for nonviolent crimes, unless it's something like theft or absconding money from the company or something like that. That's a real harm done as well too. Beyond that, you don't deal with petty crimes that are not violent, but you do deal with behaviors that feed worse behaviors. And when you see the destruction in these stores that are happening as they're allowing this sort of thing, it's obscene, and you can't do business. You have to protect your local business and your local citizens. And Democrats have refused to do it, mostly inspired by George Soros-funded prosecutors and mayors who have this idea of creating chaos, and they literally are creating chaos. They can argue whatever they want. They love the chaos. It gives them a political advantage to claim that they're going to come and fix the problem, which they never do.
And Rahm Emanuel highlighted that, even though he was a very pro-police mayor in Chicago, Illinois, that you cannot let any good issue go without chaos in order to create that power vacuum and then to take advantage of that. And we saw that perhaps with Kamala Harris going back to 2004. And before that, she was putting people in jail as the San Francisco DA for those low-level or nonviolent crimes. And then she went on Charlemagne the God's podcast to brag about using those exact same drugs and marijuana in order to enjoy and relax, the height of hypocrisy. Now, did I hear you correctly, Jim, on regards to, so let's just say these mayors, these DAs continue to create the chaos in their cities. When and if does President Trump have the authority to use that National Guard, and was he correct in using it in Los Angeles, or do Mayor Karen Bass and Governor Gavin Newsom actually have standing to say, hey, federal government, back off, even though we clearly cannot create safety in our communities and in our state?
Well, I'll answer it by talking about the situation in L.A. a couple months ago. He was totally within his authority to do that because he was bringing in those troops to protect federal facilities. And to the extent they helped the local police, they were invited to do so. That's the appropriate way to do it. You can't, he's not capable legally of coming in and taking over these police forces in other cities because the local authority is left with that municipality. The federal government doesn't have control over that. Someone is going to make some legal argument that there are some ways they can do that, but he always has authority to protect federal facilities. That is, in fact, it's in the Constitution in that same Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. It talks about the federal city, D.C., being under the authority of Congress, but it also notes that they have authority over any federal facilities, and by connection, Donald Trump can protect those. So he has the situation and the ability to do that through the National Guard. So no, he can't go over and take over the police force like he is right now. He rightly can in D.C. He can't rightly do that, in my opinion, in other cities. But again, this is going to be an example of going after crime and doing something about it. I think D.C. is going to be a lot better for it, and people are going to notice that. And these big city mayors are either going to have to get their act together, or they're going to get defeated in an election, either by another Democrat in a primary, which in Chicago would be a good one because Brandon Johnson has been a massive failure. But Paul Vallis, who ran against him in the primary, barely lost, but the police force loves him. He'd have been great for education. So it's going to be someone like a Paul Vallis in Chicago going against Brandon Johnson, or someone else in some other city. You're going to see that happen. It could be a Republican mayor come in. Indianapolis, by the way, my hometown, I always tell people I'm from Indianapolis, who run a little race there you might have heard of. But Indianapolis Mayor Joe Hogsett has really allowed crime to get out of hand. He used to be a very moderate Democrat decades ago. I was acquainted with him in the 90s. But he's gone with the radical leftists in the Democrat Party. There's harm happening to people in Indianapolis, I would predict that's one city where you very well may see a Republican mayor come back. It was a dominant Republican mayorship for a long period of time until this century. I think that may revert back. I think that's the sort of thing that you're going to see happen in these cities if they're successful in doing what they're doing in Washington, D.C.
And I'm encouraging, especially the Young Republican National Federation had their national meeting that happens every 2 years in beautiful Nashville, Tennessee recently. And unfortunately, I was not able to attend that, but I'm hoping that it was discussed at least that many of these millennials and Gen Zers do live in these major cities and that they have the courage and hopefully some financial backing to run as Republicans, or in some cases it's nonpartisan or independent for these city councils and for mayorships, because they could have the energy and the common sense to bring back safety to these beautiful centers that are not only for trade and commerce, but they're meant to intimidate and humble foreign heads of state. That's why the White House is arguably the greatest home field turf and advantage of, as we've seen, President Trump has definitely taken advantage of that in the second term, 200 plus days in, with nearly 20 or so heads of state coming to see him right in the Oval Office. Now, speaking of criminality, Jim, when it comes to the Democrat Party, we have that very shifty Adam Schiff, the senator from California, who allegedly also has residency in Maryland. So that technically is mortgage fraud, but he seems like he's in a lot of hot water lately.
Well, he is, because we also know now that he was likely feeding out classified documents to try to harm Trump, which is absolutely illegal. He has no authority to do that, and apparently he was doing that. He's in a lot of hot water. When you look at the situation that he has in this Maryland home, Letitia James, the Attorney General of New York, has a similar problem in Virginia, where she claimed residency to reduce taxes on a property she owned here in Virginia. You know that there is a very real problem afoot. And I was talking with a friend of mine who is one of the key recipients of harm during the Russia hoax in the Trump first administration. I mentioned, he agreed with me, that there's so much information coming out about the lies and subterfuge, both in the Obama administration, Adam Schiff, Clinton Foundation stuff. John Solomon has been rolling that out recently, showing the potential criminality there. There's so much information coming out against these Democrat efforts to keep making money with our tax dollars, and to undermine and in my case, seek a coup against a sitting president, that people's eyes might start glazing over. And we got to have some indictments happening. Adam Schiff is absolutely subject to a potential indictment. I mean, they did it to Menendez in New Jersey when he went with Donald Trump on something, or actually went with Republicans on something during the Obama administration. Obama sicked the Department of Justice on him. That first case, he was found not guilty. He was found guilty a second time. I'm not saying he's a good actor, but I am saying you could go after a senator legally like that. And when appropriate, you should. And it seems with this Maryland case at a minimum, but also with his chairmanship of the Intelligence Committee in the House, delivering out classified documents he had no authority to deliver out. There's some real potential criminality here. That should be investigated. Indictments should ensue. And we need to take these things down. We need a lot of indictments for people who have clearly violated the law. We need to do everything we can, the Trump administration does, to go after that. Because if we do not cut the head off of this thing quickly, then some future Democrat president is likely to bring it all back. Could be a Republican president, who knows? But Donald Trump's a unique bird. But I think that we could be in harm in the future, and I'm hopeful that we're going to see indictments of Adam Schiff and others where appropriate, so that we can have the rule of law hopefully continue to get reformed in this country, which it slowly is, with still some problems here and there.
A constitutional republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. about 250 years young. But as Benjamin Franklin said to the gentleman outside of Constitution Hall, "Sir, what did you give us?" Mr. Franklin responded, "A constitutional republic, if you can keep it." And apparently, as legend goes, there was that pause. But according to all of this, Jim, even Minority Leader Chuck Schumer should be all for it if he truly believes in this, because as he said, the intelligence community has 6 ways from Sunday at getting after you if they want to. And that's always been the joke around DAs and in legal halls, that you can indict a ham sandwich for potential criminality. So worth looking into to keep our government afloat.
No doubt. By the way, when he made that statement, originally, because I heard it live when he made the statement, it was concerning, and it was actually a fairly well taken point. I don't think anybody in the United States could have imagined how deep and wide this problem would become. And I was telling people in 2016, Cruz supporters who were so upset with Donald Trump, the one point I made to them, I said, having been on Capitol Hill for some years prior to that, I said, listen, if Donald Trump becomes president, he's going to turn over the trash cans and reveal how bad Washington, D.C. really is. And I ended up being somewhat prophetic in that statement, because that's exactly what we're watching. This trove of evidence that Tulsi Gabbard is sending out, Kash Patel is, Ratcliffe and the CIA, all this stuff that's coming out that is showing precisely how bad Washington, D.C. had gotten. A deeply corrupt situation with people enriching themselves because of their positions of influence. Hillary Clinton, the chief of that, but there were others too, obviously members of Congress as well, but also the dark side of really a fifth estate that was running the country, that was taking down political opponents. Barack Obama, the community organizer, proud community organizer, was doing something so much more corrupt than what his mental mentor Saul Alinsky was ever doing, where he would just bring people up and threaten companies and literally do a shakedown of those companies to give him millions of dollars to keep doing what he was doing. Well, Barack Obama put that on steroids, and it was billions of dollars going to NGOs and political benefactors. This has been a real scam. It's really bad. And I'm hopeful we can clean it all up. But as I said, the trash cans have been turned over, and I think Americans have a much better view of how bad it had gotten. Let's just pray and hope that we can change it for the future and get it back on track. You'll never get it fully back on track, but we could be in a lot better position in the future if the right things come together.
And our framers gave us that outlook and that common sense to approach how we can reclaim our shared governance. It's an amazing thing, an amazing gift, and I think a lot of people are waking up to it because of the great commentary and analysis from people like you, Jim. And I saw about Solyndra as well when you were mentioning those comments. Where did Solyndra go from 2009, if everyone remembers that scandal? But please come join us again soon on Right Side Broadcasting Network's Live Desk. It's Jim Path, the president of the Conservative Caucus, his hard-hitting analysis, always getting it on the right side of history. We'll see you very soon, sir.
Thanks so much. We'll talk soon.
Always fun to have my friend Jim Path on the show to do a deep dive into analysis of everything inside and outside of the Beltway. And how does that all happen? It's thanks to our great sponsors here at the network, allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Now 25% off of ivermectin mebendazole. You have life-saving medications like methylene blue and NAD+. In fact, 200 plus essential medications at this great online site, taking on the PBMs and the power structures in the pharmaceutical realm that want to suppress your right to bodily autonomy and true medical freedom. With code RSBN10, you get the additional 10% off as well. Ivermectin mebendazole, now 25% off as mentioned before. Scan that QR code or visit allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN for these life-saving medications. What's great about them, you could stock them with the medicine cabinet. You could take them on the road with you in your final days of summer. And I really shouldn't be saying that, but as we approach Labor Day, we're getting kind of close. We're getting back to school, and it's a beautiful time of year to enjoy football season and everything that will be approaching these holidays forthcoming. Can you believe how quick the year has gone? Never too late, though, to stock up on life-saving medication from our friends at allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. And go over to Chapter. Call today, don't delay. This great organization truly to knock out your Medicare to-do list. Call 833-438-3359. That is 833-438-3359. Call today, don't delay. If you are a family member on Medicare, then you have to turn to this great organization if you're reaching the 65-year-old point or if you are 65 or older. Medicare enrollment is full of misinformation, and the more it's confusing, the more other scammers they have an easier way to steer you in a direction that's overpriced and makes more money for them and, quite frankly, screws you in the process. You want an unbiased company protecting you, and Chapter is that group that will compare every single Medicare option for you. Now, Trump's Department of Justice fighting this corruption, now suing 3 of the biggest brokers in America for allegedly doing just that. The victims, they're Americans like you, the good viewers here at Right Side Broadcasting Network who deserve much more. So we've partnered with Chapter to make sure these scams don't happen. Their advisors make Medicare simple and always put you first in the process. They listen carefully, compare every option, and these plans can actually make you have multitude of savings right behind the door. On average, they save people $1,100. Not bad in 2025. So choose the Medicare option that's best for you. Compare every single plan that's there. It's Chapter. Again, call today for your knockout list with Medicare, 833-438-3359. And thank you to Tax Network USA, tnusa.com/RSBN. Settle those back taxes now. Protect yourself from the IRS. Again, call today. Don't delay to get all of those back taxes out of the way, whether it's personal, whether it's the business. I get it. You open a business and there's just books and numbers everywhere. These guys can help you settle that peacefully and patriotically. 800-357-1415. It's Tax Network USA, tnusa.com/RSBN. Again, 800-357-1415. Give them a call right after you hear from President Trump. Forthcoming, it's 1 o'clock, the top of the hour. The president will be speaking live from the Oval Office, so be sure to stick with us here on Right Side Broadcasting Network as we've been on for a couple of hours now, diving deep into the issues that are affecting you, the American people. So good afternoon, America in the Midwest and the East Coast, and good morning, America, to the Mountain and Pacific time zones and the Alaska time zone, and also out in Hawaii, because tomorrow President Trump will be traveling to Anchorage, Alaska to meet with President Putin of Russia, hopefully bringing to an end or the beginning of an end to this terrible conflict that has been going on for over 3 years now, leading to the deaths of over 1 million Russian and Ukrainian civilians and military in a process that's truly a stalemate. And as Jim Paff put it so aptly, Putin is behind the 8 ball. He has to show some card at this point. He has been so wrong in this, but Zelensky shares a lot of blame in his own regard. 2 amazing cultures, the Ukrainian people, the Russian people. President Trump simply wants peace. He wants the killing to stop, and he's been rather successful in countless other engagements and with historic enemies that have now come to the table, not only to trade with the United States, but to broker peace between one another, including India and Pakistan. You could have had a nuclear fallout from that. Thailand and Cambodia, they've been fighting forever. How about the Congo and Rwanda? The bloodiest conflict since World War II. President Trump helped broker that peace, hosting the African nations at the White House, as he will speak from the Oval Office momentarily. And as we break down all of these issues that are affecting you, the American people, the VA processes more claims in a single year than ever before, thanks to the leadership of Secretary Doug Collins, a former congressman from the Peach State of Georgia, now serving in this role, and a veteran himself. Just yesterday, in a resounding victory for America's heroes, the Department of Veterans Affairs announced they have processed a record number of 2.5 million ratings claims so far in fiscal year 2025. This is another milestone, eliminating massive blockage and backlog inherited by the AutoPen administration of Joe Biden. Now, the extraordinary progress and moves that have been made, highlighted by a 37% reduction in pending claims since President Trump took office at his inauguration on January 20th of this year, demonstrates the Trump administration's commitment to unwavering and delivering promises swiftly with efficient benefits to our nation's heroes. This is directly quoted from Veterans Affairs. In fiscal year 2024, the VA processed a total of 2,517,519 claims. These are ratings claims, and this year the department reached an all-time high of 2,524,115 claims. So that's roughly 17,000 plus more claims at this point, shattering what took place last year. And this was issued by August 8th, and we still have plenty of time to go in 2025. This milestone is the latest in a string of noteworthy VA claims processing achievements. And since President Trump took office back on January 20th, the backlog of veterans waiting for VA benefits has dropped by more than 37% after rising 24% during the Biden administration. Now, in July, the VA completed more than 300,000 ratings claims in a single month for the first time ever. And the VA is processing claims faster in fiscal year 2025 than in FY24, completing them 17.8% faster, even as receipts are 10% higher than this time last year. And this is as Vice President J.D. Vance visits the United Kingdom and meeting with troops, talking about strengthening the relationship in an article we just released. And if you did not know about that, you can actually read the written word and the written format at rsbnetwork.com/newsletter. So in case you miss a broadcast or in case you don't swipe back to watch our daily content, you can also read about the Vice President, J.D. Vance, telling the American service members on Wednesday that the strength and reputation of the United States military gives the United States an advantage in high-stakes diplomacy, including an upcoming meeting between President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin to take place tomorrow in Anchorage, Alaska. If you were with us at the beginning of this broadcast 2 hours ago, we played back that video and just how much the troops love their vice president and the heir apparent to the Make America Great Again movement, as we thank our sponsors here on the right side of history, PDS Debt. The system is not broken, it's rigged. And if you're buried in debt, it's actually how they want it. These creditors win when you lose, but you can take back control of your assets now. No credit score required. See if you qualify in as little as 30 seconds at pdsdebt.com/RSBN. They've helped hundreds of thousands break free from credit card debt and high interest traps, and it's your money, it's your future. It's time to fight for both, with a record number of American citizens falling into these problems. Now, PDS Debt goes beyond the numbers to understand your unique financial situation and craft a personalized plan designed for you. There's no minimum credit score required. They're here to help you save more, pay off your debt faster, and ultimately put more money back where it belongs, your pocket, and give you that true financial freedom that so many do long for. This organization, PDS Debt, is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, the BBB, boasts thousands of 5-star reviews on Google sites and ratings, and holds a 5-star rating on Trustpilot. So why go to pdsdebt.com/RSBN? Because it's helped hundreds of thousands of people, good people like you, the viewers here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, to break free from debt. All it takes is 30 seconds to find out if that quote works for you, and no credit score required. So I'd go to pdsdebt.com/RSBN today, get your free assessment, and have peace of mind. If you like what you see here at the network, we are your go-to live desk. Ever since January of this year, we were also your go-to rally network for over a decade to bring you, the American people, great shots and scenes like that from 2024 of the president and the vice president and members of Congress that are engaged in making America great again, thanks to your votes back on November 5th of 2024. What a campaign it was, and something I will never forget, being out there in the swing states with you, the amazing American people. Support us right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network with rsbnetwork.com/donate. And by texting RSBN to 801-801. You can also write if you wish to opine. Tell us if you like the content, what you'd like to see. And if you're tuning in to Thursday nights at 6 o'clock, yours truly, the voice of reason. So don't miss that action-packed show tonight as well as we go into episode 10. Feedback at rsbn.tv. That's feedback at rsbn.tv if you wish to opine. Now, if you don't like to do the computer donations, or you just don't like the new school way of doing things, you're more old school, then why not send in a check? We have a wonderful address for that. It is 1550 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344 in the loveliest village on the plains, Auburn, Alabama, 36830. Once again, 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344, Auburn, Alabama, 36830. Wow. Trump 2024. Will there be the Trump 2028? Because ultimately, he may not be on the ballot, but those policies are. And I'm starting to think that Vance Rubio 2028 seems pretty realistic at this point. But what say you about that? It's, I know, around the corner. We don't want to think about it. It's too soon. But 200 plus days, this breakneck pace of this administration, moving quicker than any modern president in the history of our country in order to set things correct and put this sinking ship back afloat, known as the United States of America, because quite frankly, we were in a deep amount of trouble, not only with Barack Hussein Obama, but the auto pen and just who the heck was controlling that administration. Was it the so-called doctor of education, Jill Biden, who at that, I would argue, it's spousal abuse, which she did to her husband, parading him around like that as he fell off bicycles in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, or just simply ate his ice cream cone while passing out next to the ocean, or simply following up the steps of Air Force One, or just receiving a great amount of disrespect from allies like Saudi Arabia over the years. We saw the fact that the Saudi Arabian crown prince came out to greet President Trump on the steps of Air Force One, that red carpet that they rolled out, and then walking him back. That just doesn't happen in Saudi Arabian protocol. And the traditional Arab sword dances that took place in the Gulf states and that region during the visits to Qatar and the United Arab Emirates. President Trump clearly has reshaped the globe economically and domestically here at home, securing the border with an invasion that no longer exists at the southern border, and the stop to fentanyl. And those 20 promises made and kept that became Republican Party policy back in July of last year in Milwaukee, Wisconsin at the Republican National Convention. He's pretty much achieved all of them. Now it's that peace through strength mentality that will go up to Anchorage, Alaska, to dialogue and discuss with Russian President Vladimir Putin. And both men in this situation, the United States does not have to necessarily engage in this, but President Trump willing to stop the bloodshed. And in turn, Vladimir Putin could stay near the Kremlin and not even bother to come to the United States. And he is, I would say, because he does not have the cards, just as Zelensky does not have the cards, and that was proven in the Oval Office some months ago. And our dear friend pointing out the fact that this guy paraded around like a clown, like a character without a suit. Well, apparently he does have a suit now, and we'll see what further meetings will come about after this big summit tomorrow. So make sure you tune in tomorrow afternoon East Coast time into the early evening. We'll have a doubleheader. Yours truly will be covering all of this in Anchorage, Alaska, a place I'm very fond of because I used to cover local politics there during the COVID pandemic. And it's one of the most beautiful places in the entire world. God truly showed off in the creation of Alaska, which was once called Seward's Folly. Secretary of State William Seward under President Lincoln purchasing that land for 2 cents an acre in the 19th century. And really that ended up being Russia's folly. They probably should have never given up that land. And in turn, God watching over us for the minerals and the oil resources and the abundance that is the great state of Alaska and the diversity and the melting pot that it truly is, with native cultures and Eskimo lands to a large Russian population, especially in the Chugach and throughout Juneau, where it's just west of the Yukon territories all the way up in northwest Canada. It's an extraordinary place of the world. Please go, especially in the summertime, if you like a forever summer. People actually make dinner reservations at 10:30 at night because it can look like 5 o'clock outside. It's the weirdest thing, but it's a lot of fun to enjoy God's beauty and his majesty all the way up in the beautiful state in Alaska, and strategically huge for the Pacific Fleet and also during the Cold War. So thank you to one of the greatest Secretary of States other than Marco Rubio. It was William Seward for having that vision way back when during the Lincoln administration, because this provides home court advantage and that home turf needed to stop this bloody conflict between the Russian and Ukrainian governments. Over 1 million people now perished, civilian and both military. And even Putin, he had his troops dig up trenches near Chernobyl. And it's, although there's half-life and that radiation caused from that nuclear disaster years ago, many of them have radiation poisoning and have died as a result of that, something that legacy media did not really cover. Very sad to see what's happening there, but the Russian economy really taking a spiral. They need something to be solved. The Ukrainian position right now will not give up land. We'll see what they come to with the deal maker in chief in the middle of the room. And the last time President Trump really sitting down in depth with Zelensky of Ukraine was at the Vatican during the funeral proceedings for the late pontiff Pope Francis before Pope Leo XIV of Dalton, Illinois, just south of Chicago, was ultimately elected as the 267th pontiff of his Holy Roman Catholic Church. So that was quite a sight to see in the palaced halls of St. Peter's Basilica. This president will do whatever necessary, take whatever necessary time for each and every leader, regardless if he's in line with him or her or not. And it's brought back economic wealth to this country, using tariffs to actually stabilize world peace in the process, and common sense again, because I've talked about it before. Just why the heck did the AutoPen get rid of the Keystone Pipeline that went from Alaska through the 51st state of Canada, and the former governor, Justin Trudeau, the communist, was on his knees. Mr. President AutoPen, please, please, please give back that Keystone Pipeline. Why would you activate Nord Stream 2, the Russian pipeline that dominated Eastern Europe and the German economy? While the Germans were saying, including the European Union president, oh, Russia has too much influence. Then why were they purchasing oil and natural gas from Russia for 4 years at the rate that they were? That all ended when President Trump went to meet with the European Union president and the UK Prime Minister with a new deal, $600 billion, to level out that unfair trade deal from past neoliberal and neocon presidents and administrations that, quite frankly, put America last to serve their globalist deep state League of Shadow agenda. And not only $600 billion in new trade deals between the two largest economies collectively, between the European Union and the United States of America, but also a $720 billion deal in new energy commodities. It's a masterclass every day with this president, whether it is the Kennedy Center Awards that we saw yesterday honoring 5 recipients that are so well deserving of that award. Again, it's George Strait, King George. In fact, yesterday I went to one of the favorite restaurants here in Auburn, and they have the King George enchilada. So I thought, well, I have to celebrate the king of country music, and that's George Strait of the Lone Star State of Texas, for his contributions to music, to Michael Crawford and the beautiful voice commanding that role as the Phantom of the Opera for years on Broadway and off Broadway. Someone who was also in Hello Dolly with Barbra Streisand, but really wanted to stay away from the screen. He loved theater and preferred plays and musicals. An extraordinary voice, as President Trump put it, and different than Luciano Pavarotti, the great opera star, and his contemporary, but both men captivating audiences in the 70s and 80s, and even prior to that, leading into the 90s in their ultimate retirements. But you also have Gloria Gaynor, who dominated in the disco era, and none other than Rocky and Rambo himself, Sylvester Stallone, Sly, who's still crushing it on the silver screen, and with local media with Tulsa King, a great series, if you have not caught that, and the most electrifying rock band perhaps in history, who took circus antics and really made it mainstream. Heavy metal at the time, I think you call it classic rock now, but Kiss, who stood against the disco era of the time, but they actually wrote a couple of disco songs themselves, and I'm sure that's going to be a great night celebrating American arts and festival at the Kennedy Center, which is being gutted and redone under the chairmanship of President Trump, and he was asked to host that night, and he's putting on that host hat as he did once before as the chairman of the board during the Apprentice years, which NBC never did better when President Trump, when he was at the helm of prime time. But he is prime time right now as the 47th Commander-in-Chief, and we'll hear from him relatively momentarily. Was scheduled for 1 o'clock Eastern, about 20 minutes after that now, as I'm sure he'll speak on the last few hours, roughly 72 hours from that Monday press conference where President Trump described how home rule would come into effect, and really the federal city now taken over by federal forces, and it's a constitutional duty to protect the city. Now, you're going to have Democrat mayors claiming that he's going around and terrorizing the left-leaning and left-wing language of ICE terrorizing citizens. Nothing could be further from the truth. And some congressmen actually trying to put legislation through to get rid of the face coverings of federal agents as they're trying to protect themselves. That's so interesting. They want to get rid of the face coverings of those who are putting themselves in harm's way to protect the American people from deadly fentanyl and trafficking and rape and murder and violent crime and carjackings. But they wanted you to wear a mask in 2020 and 2021 on airplanes and in restaurants, and in turn, dental bills skyrocketing because kids had to wear them in school, especially in these blue cities, counties, and states. And it ended up forcing people to move. And kudos to certain governors like Brian Kemp and Ron DeSantis. In Georgia and Florida, they saw the writing on the wall and they said, it's up to you. If you don't feel good, stay home. If you have to go to work, you got to go to work. But make sure you're not infecting other people by using common sense. Wow, how amazing is that? Where you had Illinois put together in these different sectors. Now, Governor J.B. Pritzker might claim that he did not intend to do that, just as he was joking on the Colbert Show last week, that late show that is now canceled come May of 2026, that a kindergartner drew the maps. No, sir. You were that kindergartner that actually signed off on Democrat lobbyists controlling your coffers and the legislature, the supermajority in Springfield, Illinois. A state, the Prairie State, in fact, actually voting 45% or so for the Republican candidate Donald Trump, yet over 83% of its representation is Democrats, 14 House members, 2 United States senators, and only 3 Republicans who are leading that charge, specifically Mary Miller in central Illinois, against your big government fascist antics. rather remarkable to think about, because it's always these people screaming democracy, 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 and then they're telling you exactly what to do and what not to do with your freedom of choice, with your wealth, with how you can spend time with family or friends, or not go to church or the gym because of things like COVID lockdowns. We can't forget what the far left progressive movement did during that time and what they intend to do with people like Mamdani running for New York City mayor. He wants to control farmers markets. I'm sure many of you go to farmers markets. There's some great ones here in Auburn and the surrounding area. I don't think the government of Alabama nor Lee County would necessarily want to control farmers' produce. What they're interested in doing, as Senator Tommy Tuberville told us, he's a candidate for governor here in Alabama, right here on this network, visiting us, 2.2 million acres of Alabama farmland, thanks to the auto pen and thanks to big government regulations, under the control of the Chinese Communist Party, but that changing swiftly due to the amazing work of Secretary Brooke Rollins at USDA. And you saw that press conference right here a few weeks ago with leaders in President Trump's cabinet and congressmen, senators, governors, all coming together mostly throughout the South and Southeast to say no to the Chinese communist moves. And the fact that they have these damn bird killers on these lands. Sometimes I'll drive from this area back to Chicago, and I go through those great crossroads of Indiana, where our friend Jim Paff is from, in Indianapolis, just south of that in southern Indiana, miles of these farms that had to sell their land to Chinese communist windmills that are produced there, that cannot be recycled, that create a carbon footprint so large while they're being built that it would rival any gas or oil-powered vehicle by hundreds of times. And here's the kicker. You can't recycle them. They just sit there and they lay there and they kill birds. So for all those green communists out there, do you want birds to get murdered by these low-energy windmills? I've seen President Trump speak on the issue on countless occasions, and it's something where the government needs to get out of the way and allow farmers, ranchers, and agriculture to thrive again in this country, and to make sure we know exactly the origin of our food. Now, part of this deal, too, with the European Union a couple of weeks ago, that $600 billion will include investments in purchase of poultry and beef here in America. Europe, for the longest time, would not purchase that from the United States because of chemicals and hormones being injected into the livestock. That was all done because of big government regulation and fast pacing these terrible chemicals that go into our food supply. And just a few years ago, I would have been with a number of people echoing a chorus of, has to be a conspiracy theory. Everything's a conspiracy theory. Well, I started getting involved and I realized, oh my goodness, this stuff is true. The stuff that Robert F. Kennedy talked about, the fluoride in the water, and the fact that these mandates came upon us during the summer of love in 2020, and many people lost their jobs as a result. Thank God you have this common sense approach again in office from President Trump, re-enlisting our great military members who in some cases could not take it because of their respective health history. I lost a position, a dream job as a journalist. By the grace of God, I literally came back to this to bring you the truth and to talk on the issues of the day. But big government would say otherwise to all of that, as we see now an era of golden jubilee that will truly lead to an exciting moment announced this week at the White House. The 4th of July next year, going to have one of the biggest fight nights in the history of America. Dana White, the USC, in fact, stating that they will celebrate 250 years of America at the White House with an outdoor fight. That will be fun to watch as President Trump completely changing the campus of the White House, adding his glitz and glam with a presidential ballroom. which will be absolutely fantastic because when they have those big events at the White House, you have people that have to go into the tent off the Rose Garden, 600 plus. They're in their high heels or nice tuxedo shoes and tailored affair, walking on in, black tie required events to celebrate American greatness, and they're walking in mud or whatever it might be, or an uncomfortable tent that might not have air conditioning. It's time for a presidential ballroom that is all financed by President Trump and great donors, not by taxpayers, as some would say on the legacy media. To that I say, fake news. Let's go with the President of the United States in the Oval Office.
Hello, everybody. How are you? How are you? Are you all set? How are you? Thank you very much for being with us. It's a good time for this country, whether you have the hottest country anywhere in the world. I think you're hearing it from a lot of people, not just from me. We're doing very well in so many ways. And the gentleman on my right, we recruited him. We tried to get the best person. We got a man that you'll hear in a second has done an amazing job with respect to Social Security. He's running it, and he's running it like nobody ever even dreamt possible. And it's the 90th anniversary right now of Social Security. So today we celebrate that 90th anniversary of one of the most significant pieces of legislation ever signed into law, the Social Security Act of 1935, and we're going to make it stronger, bigger and better, really doing a job. In the campaign, I made a secret pledge to our seniors that I would always protect Social Security, and under this administration, we're keeping that promise and strengthening Social Security for generations to come. You keep hearing stories that in 6 years, 7 years, Social Security will be gone, and it will be if the Democrats ever get involved because they don't know what they're doing. But it's going to be around a long time with us. Very much, you'll be surprised to hear some of the numbers. I'm delighted to be joined by the Commissioner of the Social Security Administration, Frank Bisignano. Oh, in the world of business, in fact, I wrote some of the little things down that he's had an amazing, he was Chief Operating Officer of JP Morgan Chase. He worked for Jamie Dimon, and Jamie Dimon said that he was amazing. So think of that, Chief Operating Officer, JP Morgan Chase, had a storied career. Then he went to First Data. For those in the business, you'd know it's the largest payment company anywhere in the world. And worked for Henry Kravis, and it was in big trouble. He took it over as CEO. He made it incredible. They merged with Fiserv, and he became CEO of that, and that became extremely successful. I was in Milwaukee. I guess they have the Milwaukee Arena, and where we had some good success and some good speeches. But he's a really legendary guy, and he wanted to do this. I mean, he just wanted to straighten out Social Security because he loves our country. And what he's done in a few months is amazing. Almost 60 million American seniors rely on Social Security for peace of mind and a life of dignity and retirement. These Americans paid into the system, and they deserve leaders in Washington who are going to protect the benefits they've had and protect Social Security. Under Biden, Social Security went down like nobody's ever seen. It deteriorated. There's never been anything like it. The 4 years of Biden were very, very destructive. It couldn't have gone on much longer. Social Security was going to be destroyed. It was being destroyed. The average call wait time reached an all-time high of more than 42 minutes. Field office wait times were at 32 minutes, which is unheard of, and the disability claims backlog was the longest ever in recorded history. In other words, it was run just like the country was run. It was run really badly. But I'm pleased to report that under our leadership, and Frank in particular, the changes he's made and what he's done is sort of a miracle. sort of like what happened with the country as a whole. Field office wait times are now down 30% since last year, and it looks like it's going to a total record number. And the record was set in a long time ago when the world was a lot different place. We're gonna beat that record. Call wait times are down 73% while serving twice as many customers per day. The disability claims backlog is down 26%, and seniors now have 24/7 online access to their accounts, which they never had before, whereas under Biden, the website was down 29 hours a week for maintenance purposes. It was essentially not open very much. They were always maintaining it, but they didn't know what the hell they were doing. They had a person running that had no idea what they were doing. Among my very first acts was to order all government employees to return to the office or be removed from the job, which means our Social Security offices are now open for full business hours 5 days a week. So unlike being shut down all the time, we're open at record levels also. We're making it really great for the people that want and demand Social Security, and they paid into the system. They deserve it. Last month, I signed one big, beautiful bill and allowed no tax on Social Security for our great seniors, okay? So how's that? Not bad, right? No tax on Social Security for our seniors. And to protect our benefits, we've already kicked nearly 275,000 illegal aliens off of the Social Security system. These are people, many of them have already left the country, and yet we were sending them checks all the time. And 275,000, and that number is now even larger than that, Frank. It's an unbelievable job. And what that's doing is making the system strong. It's making it strong. Biden never kicked anybody off. Everybody joined. And we're carrying out historic deportations to remove many more illegals committing Social Security fraud. It's the Social Security fraud that was taking place at levels that nobody's ever seen. We cleared 12.4 million names listed in the Social Security database over 120 years of age. Think of that. So we had 12.4 million names where they were over 120 years old. Is that right? That's a hell of a statement. I have a feeling, Dan, that's not really that really didn't happen, did it? So you have 12.4 million names listed in the Social Security database that were over 120 years of age, meaning you were breaking records, because I've never heard of anybody at 125. There were nearly 135,000 people listed who were over 160 years old, and in some cases getting payments. So somebody's getting those payments, and we're after that. We're also fighting the menace of inflation to make life more affordable for American seniors, and we've ended Biden's inflation nightmare. So we had the worst inflation in the history of our country, and now our inflation is down to a perfect number, a beautiful number, hardly any at all. And yet our country's taking in tens of billions of dollars and trillions of dollars, actually trillions of dollars in tariffs. And you know all about it. It's been amazing. They say, why are we taking in so much money? Last week they found $29 billion and they couldn't figure out where it came from. I said, check the tariff shelf. And they said, how did you know that's where it came from? We're taking in billions and even trillions of dollars in tariffs, paid by other countries who, frankly, were taking advantage of us for many, many years. And they were doing that to us, but our people didn't know it. We didn't have smart business people. We've ended Biden's inflation nightmare and came in below expectations, and yet, again, this past month, we set records. Gasoline prices are way down, and really dramatically, as everybody knows, and energy prices have been going down, other than in certain states where you have Democrat-run states where they put windmills all over the place. Anytime you see a windmill, you'll say, well, they have bad energy costs, and it's happening in New Jersey. I saw that there's a revolution going on in New Jersey. They closed up a nuclear power plant, and they're raising electricity rates by 21, 22, and 28%, something like that. And you're going to have a new governor in New Jersey. I tell you what, you have a good man running. in the Republican Party. He'll get them down. But what they've done is they've killed so many good sources of energy for very expensive windmills and lots of other things that don't work. 401ks and retirement accounts are soaring, and the stock market is setting record highs. Almost every day we're going record highs, and yet we're taking in hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs. So it's turned out that Trump was right and they were wrong. Few smart people knew what was going to happen. Few of us were right. So we're going to keep the fighting going. We're going to make America's seniors every single day. We're going to fight for them. We're going to make them richer, better, stronger in so many different ways. But Social Security is like pretty much the one that we think about, and we love it, and we love what's happening with it. And it's going to be good for 90 years and beyond. Again, you were given only a short period of time. Social Security was supposed to be like down. Had they won the election, Social Security would have defaulted during Biden or Kamala's election, whoever they so chose. Two beauties. And now what I'd like to do is ask Frank to say a few words. Again, this is a man with a really storied past. He's one of the most successful anywhere in the world. What he did at J.P. Morgan Chase and what he did for Henry Kravis and all of the others are like legendary stories. And he just wanted to do this. He's making about a tiny fraction, I would say, a tiny fraction of what you used to make. But he didn't care. He wanted to do it. He made a lot of money. And he said, I want to run that system. I want to put it back on track. And he's got an unbelievable talent over there. It's like a different place. So, Frank, would you say a few words, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Is less than 1% tiny fraction, sir?
Is that what it is, less than one? That's a tiny
That's
fraction.
an honor. It's an honor. It is an honor. And I'd like to start off by thanking the President for his tireless effort in running the country, in what he's done across the country, meeting every commitment. And, you know, I see it directly in the big, beautiful bill, the opportunity that it's brought to seniors. But his effort on every commitment, delivering against it, and delivering on world peace tirelessly. I'd like to also thank him for my opportunity. You know, he's teasing me, I'm teasing him about the economics of the job. But the reality is to serve 300 million Americans, which is what Social Security serves, is a tremendous honor. And him putting that faith in me and building what I believe, and I think I have a right to say it, is the best leadership team ever assembled in the White House and in the cabinet. So that's my great honor. So I come here and get the opportunity to serve the American public in a manner that I never imagined in my life. And what we found was the opportunity to fix a foundation. The reality is, people talk about 72 beneficiaries. I talk about over 300 million Americans with a Social Security number that we must protect through the system. And when you look at what we talk about in eliminating Social Security numbers that were live in the system, they could carry fraud through the whole system. So the first thing was root out fraud, waste, and abuse. But while doing it, the best way to be more efficient is provide more accurate payments and better service. And you heard the numbers. I think the most staggering number is that we had a website that was down 29 hours. This will be a digital-first agency, and we are building my SSA accounts. That's the digital account. And we have a bold goal of 200 million Americans to have a digital SSA account by the end of next year. It will happen. Just like we had a bold goal of single-digit wait time on the calls when they were at 40 minutes. And we did that. This is my 100th day. We did that within 90 days, right? Get the web up and running, bring technology to our field offices, use digital presence to answer, and serve the American public. That's the job. When we do all that, then we'll really know the answer to if we have a hole, right? I was presented my second week on the job with $18 billion in errors by the inspector general. It was public. In less than a month, we solved $9 billion of it. So that's the type of swift action we can take, right? You see the things like the big, beautiful bill for the seniors. You see better digital services. You see field office wait times down. If you make an appointment to have a field office visit, it now happens in 6 minutes. Unprecedented. We are serving more people and delivering more than was ever delivered before in a manner with the highest possible quality, and we've just begun. You should expect this to be a great digital-first agency. My commitment to make this happen is as deep as the president's commitment to make the world a great place. And you see the fabulous job happening here across America and what he's doing in the world. You should expect Social Security, just like the president. I thank him for making America great again. It's happening. Social Security will be great again. You have my commitment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Frank. I'm going to sign the new proclamation, please.
Sir, this is a proclamation both commemorating the 90th anniversary of the Social Security Act, the signing of the Social Security Act, and also the incredible accomplishments of your administration fixing and promoting and safeguarding Social Security. And it also obviously mentions the fact that as part of the One Big Beautiful Bill, a vast majority of our senior citizens are no longer paying taxes on their Social Security benefits, as you promised in your campaign and as you delivered for the American people.
That's a big factor, isn't it? Huh?
Yes, sir.
That's great. I think they're very happy about it, too. They're very happy about a lot of things. Good job, Frank.
Thank you, sir.
And Frank has brought with him some of the most talented people in business, and they were making a lot of money, but they made a lot of money. They had money they didn't have to make anymore, and they just want to do this. They want to have our country become strong and good, and that's what's happening. And we're doing that in a lot of locations, a lot of areas. You deal with some of the people that are commissioners, that are secretaries of state, secretaries of treasury and of commerce, people that were really, really successful people, and they gave all that up to make a very small amount of money. They don't even consider it a fraction. You say 1%, less than 1%. That's pretty good. That's a big pay cut. But Frank is one of the most outstanding of all. His career has been incredible, and you just have to look at what happened at J.P. Morgan Chase and look at what happened with First Data. First Data was the biggest company of its kind in the world, but it was not going to make it. He went in, and it became a tremendous success, and merged into another company, and he became the head of that company. Then he said, let me go save Social Security, because as big as that stuff is, it's small potatoes compared in terms of numbers, right? In terms of numbers, these are big numbers. Government numbers are big numbers. So I want to thank everybody for being here, but I'm really proud of you, Frank. And here's your proclamation, and let's take a look at what that looks like. Signed by the human hand. For a change. That's good, right? Do you have any questions for Frank? How about the questions for Frank? For Frank?
Mr. President?
Yes, on Social Security.
Please.
First and foremost, this was a major campaign promise that you had for 2023. It was one of the first Agenda 47s that you put out. It was titled, We Must Protect Medicare and Social Security. Why was this important for both of you to get done, and given the fact that it'll impact millions of lives?
Well, it was very important to me because I knew how Social Security, I've been hearing about it for years, long before I came to office, that it was really going to die very shortly, and I had to put somebody outstanding in. And we were talking. I was talking to him on a business sense once, and I said, "This guy's amazing." And he said, "I'd love to help you with Social Security because it's sort of what he does. You know, he takes troubled entities and turns them around." And he did some of the biggest messes in the world, and Social Security in a certain way, I guess, you reported it all the time. In 4 or 5 years, it's going to go bust, but not anymore, it's not. And he's got it turned around so well. The proclamation helps. All of the things we've done help. And he's finding such tremendous fraud where we have illegal aliens. We have people that don't even exist on Social Security now. They don't exist. And what it does, it makes it totally secure and powerful for the people that are on it and need it. And we're very proud of the job he's done, one of the best.
Kara Castro from Lindell TV. How are you today, sir? Democrats like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren continue to peddle the lie and the claim that you're trying to cut Social Security, despite your repeated promises to protect it. Why do you think they keep pushing this misinformation and literally terrorizing the elderly in America that sadly keep watching the very misleading mainstream media?
I love your question. I should have called you almost first, but I love his questions also, always. But it's such a good question. It's so vicious what they do. Elizabeth Warren said she was an Indian. We call her Pocahontas. She's a liar. She lied her whole career. Based on the fact that she was an Indian, she was able to get into certain colleges, get certain jobs, get into certain universities to work there. She's a liar and a mean person. She's a nut job. I watched her the other night. She's all hopped up endorsing a communist in New York City, and she was all excited and jumping up and down. She's got to take a drug test. She really does. She's got to take a drug test. There's no way somebody can act that way and be normal. What she's done to our financial institutions, he destroys people. Do you know that you had a lot of great banks in the Midwest and banks that loaned to farmers and others, and they went out of business? She put them out of business. Stone cold mean. Banks that were open 150 years, family banks that supplied the farmers and manufacturers and others, and she put them out of business. She's a mean, horrible human being. Bernie Sanders is Bernie Sanders. I don't mind him so much. He's just a liberal guy, very liberal guy. He's a wacky guy. He's still sharp. I got to tell you, you know, he's 86 or 87 or something. He's still sharp. You compare that to Joe Biden, it's, you know, sort of what happened. So I don't mind Bernie Sanders. With him, you know what you're getting. You're getting a guy, he's a nasty guy, but he's somebody that, I don't know if I call it a fastball, but he's able to throw the ball pretty well. He's okay. I watched him the other day. He was totally on the opposite side of things. I will say this, the biggest issue right now, and an issue that's really taken hold, is crime, stopping crime in the cities, and the Democrats are fighting the stopping of crime. So I think that's like men playing in women's sports is okay, or transgender for everybody okay. But this is a bigger issue. This is the biggest of all issues. Crime is rampant in D.C. It's rampant in our generally blue-run cities, and they've got to do something about it, or they're never going to win another election. And instead of calling me a dictator, they like to say Trump's a dictator. Trump's a dictator. Well, I had calls from many, many friends, including Democrats. I have a lot of Democrat friends, but they're normal people. And they were thanking me so much for what I'm doing in D.C. They feel so safe already. And, you know, at the border, we had 0 people come in, and this is done by a liberal group. They're the people that do it. I have nothing to do with it. 0 people in 3 months. We had 0, 0, and 0 for 3 months. And last year we had millions of people pouring in from all countries, from jails, from drug addicts, gang members, drug dealers by the thousands and thousands. 11,888 murderers, half of whom committed more than one murder. They flowed into our country, and for the last 3 months we had none. And I didn't remember when Joe Biden used to always go, I need legislation. I had no legislation. I just said we're closing the borders, and the whole world understood it because they respect your country again. They really respect this country again. They didn't respect it. When he said it, it didn't mean anything. But now they know it meant a lot. And Mexico does what we tell them to do, and Canada does what we tell them to do, because we have the 2 borders. We have the northern border, the southern border, and they were both horrible. But now it's some people say it's a miracle. Well, what Frank has done with Social Security also is something very special. But what we're doing with crime, which will be your next question, I guess, that's because everyone's they're afraid. Half of the people here, maybe all of the people here, most of you live in D.C., you are petrified to go out. And you're liberal, and if you're liberal, you're going to have to change. You're Democrats, you're going to have to change your ways. So we will have crime under control very shortly in D.C., but they're record numbers. And sadly, what I guess the mayor did but whoever it was, they asked the numbers to be fudged so that it would show less crime than the fact. The fact is, it's worse than it's ever been, and we will have it just like we did at the border, where with borders are totally in great shape right now, the best ever, record-setting shape. We'll have the crime situation solved in D.C. very soon. And we're also going to beautify the city. We have a beautiful city, but you can't have graffiti, and you can't have roads with potholes, and you can't have the medians, the dividers in the roads falling down on the street. We're going to be beautifying the city, making it really beautiful. We're going to be getting the criminals the hell out of here. We don't want the criminals in Washington, D.C.
Mr. President, one on your Putin meeting and then one on D.C. crime. Are you prepared to offer Vladimir Putin access to rare minerals to incentivize him to end the war?
We're going to see what happens with our meeting. We have a big meeting. It's going to be, I think, very important for Russia, and it's going to be very important for us, and important for us only that we're going to save a lot of lives. Look, we have, we're not paying any money, as you know, to Ukraine. We're supplying equipment. We're being paid 100% plus for that equipment by NATO. And I got NATO up from 2% to 5% of GDP. They now have billions of dollars. NATO is a very rich group of countries, and we make the best military equipment anywhere in the world by far. And they're buying our equipment, and they're paying 100% for the equipment, 100%. In fact, they owe us about $2 billion now. They're going to send a check. Another one was sent recently for $1 billion. So we're not spending any money anymore. Biden gave them $350 billion, got nothing for it. And if you look, and by the way, we also signed a rare earth deal where we get, years of rare earth to get our money back, the money we spent. But what I'm really doing this for is to save thousands of soldiers a week. You have Russian soldiers, you have Ukrainian soldiers, and then you'll have missiles dropped into various cities and towns in Ukraine. And they're losing last week they lost 7,251 people, mostly soldiers, Russian and Ukrainian soldiers. I'm doing it for that reason. We have a meeting with President Putin tomorrow. I think it's going to be a good meeting, but the more important meeting will be the second meeting that we're having. We're going to have a meeting with President Putin, President Zelensky, myself, and maybe we'll bring some of the European leaders along, maybe not. I don't know that it's going to be very important. We're going to see what happens. And I think President Putin will make peace. I think President Zelensky will make peace. We'll see if they can get along. And if they can, it'll be great. I've solved 6 wars in the last 6 months, a little more than 6 months now. And I'm very proud of it. I thought the easiest one would be this one. It's actually the most difficult. We had one war raging, as you know, for 37 years. One in the Congo with Rwanda was raging for 31 years. We solved 6 of them, made peace, not just solved them, we made peace. If you look at Pakistan and India, planes were being knocked out of the air. 6 or 7 planes came down. They were ready to go, maybe nuclear, we solved that. I thought this would be maybe an easier one. It never made sense, this war. It would have never happened when I was president. If I were president, this war would have never happened. But millions of people have been killed. And I'm there for one reason, to see if I can solve. This was Biden's war. This isn't my war. I want to see if I can stop the killing. Yeah.
Rare earths, do you plan to offer him access to that at all?
We have great rare earth. We made that as payment for all of the money that we've spent so foolishly in Ukraine. We spent $350 billion. Now, Europe spent $1 billion. That's a lot of money. They spent $100 billion. That's a lot of money. But we shouldn't be spending a lot more money than them, and they understand that. And I think that's maybe why we're not spending money anymore. We're not spending any money. They're paying us for everything. So people are shocked when they hear it. They don't even understand. They don't even write about it. But we're not spending money, but we are spending a lot of time trying to get the war solved. If we can get the war solved, we'll be very happy. As far as rare earth, that's very unimportant relative to, I'm trying to save lives.
And on D.C. crime, sir, on D.C. crime.
Do you have a message for the Democrat lawmakers like Nancy Pelosi or media who are saying, after living here for many years, that there is no crime and you're trying to start a new news cycle?
It's another reason why the Democrats lost the election in a landslide. They lie. It's just lie. Look, the crime is very bad. I think they'd be much better off saying We want to help President Trump with the crime because it's an epidemic. It's a tragic situation. It's the worst it's ever been. And we want to help President Trump with the crime as opposed to he's a dictator. He's a dictator. People are so happy to see our military going into D.C. and getting these thugs out. As you know, we arrested a lot of people yesterday. We arrested a lot of people today. We're getting people that have arrest records that you wouldn't believe. 28 arrests, 15 arrests, brutal people. And we're going to have to do something about this cashless bail because people shoot somebody, they kill somebody, and they're out on the street in less than an hour. Now, that's when it's all started in New York, in Chicago, Los Angeles. You take a look. If we didn't go to Los Angeles to help this incompetent governor and a mayor that doesn't know what the hell she's doing, if we didn't go to Los Angeles, you wouldn't have a big part of it burned down. The other part of it would have burned down too. You would have not had. I don't think you would have been able to have the Olympics. We have the Olympics. I have a lot at stake with that because I'm the one that got the Olympics. I got it in my first term, and I didn't. I was saddened because I got it for what would be my third term, okay, which turned out to be second term. And the Olympics, it's a great honor, but I felt badly because I said I won't be president when the Olympics came. Well, through circumstance, I am president. I want to make sure the Olympics is great, the World Cup is great, and the 250, maybe the most important of all, is the 250-year celebration is great. So what's happening is we will work very hard. You would not have had, I don't believe that if I didn't send in the troops, I don't think you would have had Los Angeles in condition to have the Olympics. I think you would have had to tell them, I'm sorry, you're going to have to go someplace else. And if you look at the police commissioner or the sheriff, he said, we really needed them. Thank God they were here. We really needed them. That was the first 2 or 3 days after we solved their problems. Then he said, well, I think we could have maybe done it. No, he was told what to say. He said, you go back to your files and see what he said. He said, thank goodness they came. If I didn't go and put our military there, or National Guard in that case, and we'll go military if we have to, but the National Guard went there. They were very effective. If we didn't do that, I don't think you would have had the Olympics in Los Angeles. The place would have been just like the 25,000 houses that burned down, where, by the way, the governor ought to focus on getting their permits. You know, the federal permits are given. Those are the hard ones, and they were given a long time ago. People can't rebuild the house because they can't get permits from the state and the city. And they ought to focus on that because it's very upsetting. I went there right after the fires. I walked the streets and I met a lot of great people that want to rebuild their homes. We took care of it from the federal standpoint, but they're not taking care of it from the city standpoint, the mayor and the governor. They're not getting their permits. They can't build their houses.
Mr. President, on DC crime.
Go ahead, please.
Mr. President, thank you. Do you think this summit and the incentives for peace you are putting on the table could end up rewarding Putin for his invasion of Ukraine? And what kind of signal do you think that could potentially send to other aggressors?
No, I don't think it's a reward. I think that what we have is a situation that should never have started, should have never started. It didn't start under me, and for 4 years it wasn't even discussed. And I could see it was going to happen after I left. I could see what was happening. Everything that we did was wrong. Everything that was done was wrong. Everybody's to blame. Putin's to blame. They're all to blame. This is a war that would have never happened.
The other question on LA, Mr. President, earlier today, the Washington, D.C. police chief issued an executive order allowing metropolitan police officers conducting traffic stops to notify federal immigration and customs enforcement about undocumented immigrants that they encounter. Yet the city has a long-standing pro-immigration policy, including allowing non-citizens to vote in local elections,
which is ridiculous,
and limiting cooperation with federal immigration agencies.
Right.
Did your administration pressure the D.C. police chief to review and repeal these policies? And will you require other cities to roll back similar policies to avoid possible federal takeover of local law enforcement?
So what you're saying is that it was a very positive thing. When they stop people, they find they're illegal, they report them, they give them to us, etc. That's a very positive thing. I have heard that. It just happened. That's a great step. That's a great step if they're doing that. Yeah, I think that's going to happen all over the country. We want to stop crime. I think if the Democrats aren't strong on this issue, they won't be able to do it. I think this is a bigger issue than all of the other ridiculous things that they like open borders. Well, open borders is bad. Open borders has caused a lot of this problem, allowing millions and millions. I think 24 million people were allowed to come into our country. Many of these people from prisons, from jails, from mental institutions. This was the Biden policy, and I don't believe it was him. He was never there before. It was the people that encircled this very beautiful desk, the Resolute desk. Radical left lunatics who were smart, but radical left. And I'm very happy to hear what you just said, because I've heard that.
And Mr. President, on LA, if I may, the mother of a 15-year-old California boy was briefly detained at gunpoint in a case of mistaken identity. The LAUSD superintendent says that surveillance video shows armed agents wearing police and border patrol insignia. Given the National Guard, the Border Control, ICE agents, they're not trained in local policing. What specific steps are you taking to ensure that young people are not put in harm's way with these types of operations?
Yeah, what they are trained in is common sense, and they're very tough people. And they have great common sense, and they are highly trained. I heard the mayor of LA was saying, oh, they're not trained this way. I heard this character from, where was he from? They talk about him as a candidate. He's got no chance. The governor of Maryland, I watched him this morning saying that the governor of Maryland, yeah, they say maybe he'll be a president. He's not presidential timber at all. But I heard him today talking about how the National Guard or the military is not trained in police, but they're trained in common sense, and they're trained in not allowing people to burn down buildings and bomb buildings and shoot people and all of the things. They've done a great job. Again, if we didn't send them, and very importantly, if we didn't send them into Los Angeles, the rest of Los Angeles would have been burned down to the ground. When you look at Minnesota, Minneapolis, I sent them into Minneapolis because the governor wouldn't make the call. If I didn't do that, you wouldn't have a Minneapolis. It wouldn't be, I don't think it would be existent today. You remember the famous scene burning over the CNN anchor's shoulder? He said, everything seems to be very peaceful. And behind him, the whole city's burning down. So you had the whack job governor who ran for vice president, who made a fool out of himself. You would have had, I saved that city, I'll tell you, I saved that city. So the bottom line is these are very tough people that are trained in a thing called common sense, and they're also trained in doing what we're talking about right now. And you watch crime stop, but you wouldn't have Los Angeles, it wouldn't be existent today. We would have had to cancel the Olympics if I let that go on.
Mr. President, will you pressure Israel to allow journalists into Gaza to cover the humanitarian efforts the U.S. is pursuing? And
I'd like to see that happen, sure.
Would you pressure?
I would like to see it happen. I would be very fine with journalists going in. It's a very dangerous position to be in, as you know, if you're a journalist, but I would like to see it.
And on tariffs, Brazil, Mexico, and Latin America are getting closer to China, and they say it's partly because of the tariffs you're imposing in those countries. Are you concerned them getting closer to China?
No, not at all. I'm not concerned at all. They can do what they want. None of them are doing very well, and what we're doing in terms of economics, we're blowing everyone away, including China. We're doing better than any other country in the world right now. Brazil has been a horrible trading partner in terms of tariffs. As you know, they charge us tremendous tariffs, far, far more than we were charging them. We weren't charging anything, essentially. And Brazil has some very bad laws happening where they took a president and they put him in jail, or they're trying to jail him. And I happen to know the man, and I will tell you, I'm pretty good at people. I think he's an honest man. I think what they've done, this is really a political execution that they're trying to do with Bolsonaro. I think that's terrible. But they also treated us very badly as trading partners for many, many years. One of the worst countries on earth for that. They charged tremendous tariffs, and they made it very difficult to do anything. So now they're being charged 50% tariffs, and they're not happy, but that's the way it goes.
Mr. President, on DC crime, sir, on DC crime, are you concerned at all that some federal officers that are helping DC police might be being pulled away from other high priority assignments?
Like what? Like what?
Terrorism, for example.
Oh, really? Terrorism? They'll stop terrorism as part of what they're doing right now. No. The soldiers that we have, first of all, we have plenty of them, long beyond that you have here. we're just using a very small force. You know, in Washington, D.C., they have thousands of police. They have a lot of police, but the police weren't allowed to do their job. We have a lot of great ones, and you have some that weren't so good, to be honest, but they weren't allowed to do their job. But now they are allowed to do their job, and essentially it's only 2 days, but you look at the numbers already, they're dropping. And no, they're not being pulled off for anything.
Mr. President, as you know, there were some very concerning reports about crime statistics. Police are manipulating crime data to downplay crime in D.C. Will the administration release its own crime statistics to counter their misinformation? And will those individuals who are intentionally misrepresenting crime data and fudging the books, like you said, be penalized for endangering the public?
They are under investigation right now. They are giving us phony crime stats, just like they gave other stats in the financial world, but they're phony crime stats. And Washington, D.C. is at its worst point, and it will soon be at its best point. You're going to have a very safe, you're going to have a crime-free city. I mean, I say that. You're going to have virtually a crime-free city. And these are strong men, but the criminals are strong men and women, but they're strong men. And these are people that don't play games. We're not playing games. These are criminals we're dealing with. And they treated people. They took one of the people that worked for us the other day. You saw the beating, the pounding, 10 against 1. And they pounded the hell out of him. He's lucky to be alive. He's barely, almost killed. And we're not going to have that happening, please.
Tulsi Gabbard declassified more documents last night related to the Russiagate hoax.
She's doing a great job, by the way. That was another fake story. I'm very happy with the job she's doing. That's right. They declassified some terrible documents talking about Democrats and what they did. Radical left lunatics.
It showed that then DNI James Clapper sent out emails to IC officials saying that it would be a team sport to push then the debunked 2017 ICA report and that it might need them to compromise on their normal modalities. What's your reaction to the latest declassification? And in your view, sir, what does real accountability look like for the players involved?
It's incredible what we're finding. Absolute proof of guilt. And we'll see what happens. But Clapper and Comey and that whole group of criminals, they're criminals. And they made it very tough. You know, they did the fake Russia witch hunt that lasted for 2 years. And I got totally exonerated. There was no doubt about it. They should have done it in 1 day, not 2 years. But it was a whole scheme to try and demean Trump so that I couldn't win an election. And that is a criminal group of people. They're sick people, and they're criminals, and they should be taken care of.
Mr. President. Does Putin have a strong hand tomorrow?
Well, he came to our country, and I heard CNN fake news talking about that was a big win for him. Normally, you would say the opposite, but they said, oh, it's a big win that he came here. Normally, we would say the opposite, you know, he came here. I think that President Putin would like to see a deal. I think if I weren't president, he would take over all of Ukraine. It's a war that should have never happened. If I weren't president, in my opinion, he would much rather take over all of Ukraine. But I am president, and he's not going to mess around with me.
Mr. President, on Russia, Mr. President, would you support or agree to reducing NATO troops in Europe, in countries like Poland, in order to get Russia to agree to a peace deal?
That hasn't been put before me, and I'll think about that for later, but it has not been put before me. Go ahead.
Is anything less than an unconditional and immediate ceasefire a victory for the U.S.?
Tomorrow?
Yes.
Well, tomorrow we'll see. I say, you know, I don't know where that comes from. It's sort of not a good question. I would say that tomorrow all I want to do is set the table for the next meeting, which should happen shortly. I'd like to see it happen very quickly, very shortly after this meeting. I'd like to see it actually happen maybe in Alaska where we just stay because it's so much easier. But I think that it's going to be very interesting. We're going to find out where everybody stands, and I'll know within the first 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, or 5 minutes, like we tend to find out whether or not we're going to have a good meeting or a bad meeting. And if it's a bad meeting, it'll end very quickly. And if it's a good meeting, we're going to end up getting peace in the pretty near future. Okay? How about one more?
Thank you, Mr. President. On the Smithsonian, I know that your administration is seeking to weed out a lot of this left-wing spin that's in the museums, but we're seeing from people like Brian Stelter or other commentators that they're insinuating that you are trying to change history according to your narrative. What's your response to that, and is there anything you'd particularly like to do?
Well, we want the museums to treat our country fairly. We want the museums to talk about the history of our country in a fair manner, not in a woke manner or in a racist manner, which is what many of them, not all of them, but many of them are doing. Our museums have an obligation to represent what happened in our country over the years, good and bad, but what happened over the years in an accurate way. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, press. Thank you, press. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Cut it out right here. Thank you, press. Thanks, guys. Cut out right this way, right this way. Thanks, guys. Keep coming.
You see the video of the sandwich thrown at the officer?
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed, so join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from the Diamond and Silk Chit Chat live show. Look, don't forget to check me out right here on RSBN Network. Be sure to watch the show on Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. Yes, it's imperative that you do so, okay? I look to see y'all soon. Bye-bye.
allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You can scan that QR code now, RSBN10. That is the code, easy to remember, for 10% off. This is ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, antibiotics that will save you and yours from bacterial and viral infections, NAD+, and much, much more. 200 essential medications and emergency medical kits, the meds you trust delivered to your door.